Before we proceed, I would really like to welcome the Minister and the Deputy Ministers who will be joining us today, but also to make an announcement as regards to our question paper. Honorable members will have noticed that we had included in today's session the questions to the Minister of Energy. He has pleaded with us to move his question time to Tuesday, which is still, he will come, Honorable Member. He is coming on Tuesday to do the responses in the House. Honorable members, you are welcome. I would also like to, before we start with our question paper, say that we have received notice that the Honorable Minister of Tourism has to hurry back home. She has lost a relative. We want to pass our condolences, ma'am, and we appreciate that even though you are rushing home to a funeral of a very close and loved one, you managed to come here. Our condolences, ma'am. I will therefore immediately, honorable members, proceed to the question paper and actually give the Minister the first opportunity to respond. Minister, the question to you is, it's the question by the Honorable Khai to the Honorable Minister. It is question number 288. The Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, and my appreciation on the condolences. My response to the question is that in the year 2011, the Cabinet approved the National Tourism Sector Strategy, and through the implementation of this strategy, we have sustained growth in international tourist arrivals for 6 consecutive years up to 2016. And tourist arrivals reached about 10 million, which was a double-digit growth of about 13% compared to 2015. This growth has also come with much-needed employment in the sector, which was to consider both direct and indirect jobs. The sector employs way over 1.5 million people. The direct contribution of the GDP was 118 billion in 2015, and these achievements clearly indicate that our implementation was a success from a growth point of view, and we have also seen significant success in other areas such as skills development, product development and enhancement, as well as SMME support. We continue to have challenges, of which we are having a program that looks into issues following up with the National Development Plan and the President's call for radical economic transformation, where we have a strategy that includes a transformation fund which assists in dealing with challenges around access to finance, SMME support program, encouraging and facilitating the use of state-owned facilities for opportunities for Black operators and management capacities, as well as concessions. We are also focusing on opportunities within the tourism supply chain across the value chain, and also using state procurement of travel and related services, which are estimated by National Treasury to be about 10 billion. We are also implementing the tourism broad-based Black economic empowerment codes, which include 30% ownership and 50% women thereof. We also need to ensure domestic tourism serves as a backbone for our tourism. We have embarked on a process to also review the tourism sector strategy, which we hope to finalize before the end of the year. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Minister. The Honorable Khai, your supplementary.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Excuse me. Thank you, Minister. In terms of maximizing opportunities, I'm of the view that whilst we appreciate, Minister, the successes, but I don't think we're maximizing opportunities enough, given that there's a lot of money that government uses, particularly for accommodation. Every week, there will be officials coming, say, from Pretoria to Cape Town. We're not using the opportunity to ensure that there's a growth with regard to tourism, small enterprises, particularly black operators. What is it that the minister is doing to ensure that departments, firstly, are playing their role, including Parliament for that matter, because we would have outreach programs such as taking Parliament to the people, provincial week, but we don't use black-owned enterprises. Most of the time will just be in town. So what role does the department play? One, to ensure that departments also play a role, as well as the Parliament. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Minister?
Thank you very much, Honorable Khai, for the question. Indeed, there's a lot of money, as I indicated, that we have estimated that a lot of money to the tune of about 10 billion could be used to circulate the wealth to our previously disadvantaged people. The role that the Department of Tourism is looking at as part of the new tourism sector strategy is to look across the value chain to ensure that we can develop and promote the products so that they meet the standards. But at the same time, we are working very closely with the National Treasury to ensure that this could translate to benefits in the townships, by ensuring that after developing those products, we'll be able to grade them and make sure that we can ensure that the standard will be up to the level of what is required. So our SMME development program and our grading program that is also enhanced by the incentive program is looking at ensuring that we are able to balance this, because we don't want our officials, as well as anybody who uses our black-owned enterprise, to feel that it's an inferior kind of thing, but it must meet the standards. So it's part of our new sector strategy and the program that we're implementing even now. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The Honorable Mtimunye.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. As the Mpumalanga Provincial Delegation, we recently visited St. Parks Kruger during the provincial week. The levels of poverty you witness with a naked eye on the surrounding communities, vis-a-vis what you see when you enter Kruger Park, the same old big white companies continue to benefit out of economic opportunities. Well, what is the plan of the department with regard to radical economic transformation especially on the assets of government that we have in control of as government?
Thank you, sir. Minister?
Thank you very much once more. As part of responding to the question, I will illustrate it by way of giving an example. For instance, looking into these kinds of attractions that we have that have been bringing or attracting tourists into the country, we looked into the fact that tourists today are also looking at linking up with communities or making contacts with communities. The National Department of Tourism, for instance, in identifying some of the areas where already attractions are happening, it is providing, for instance, at the Shangoni Gate Tourism Development next to Kruger National Park, it is providing assistance for the development of an entrance gate so that other tourism facilities can be developed alongside there that would also provide the kind of experience that is linked to the communities. And this is part of what we are doing in Shangoni Gate Tourism Development at Palabura, Wild Activity Hub, at the Tsitsikama Big Tree Gateway, and some of the other universally projects that are looking at providing universal access, because we want people to go to areas and also find experiences within our communities alongside what is already happening. So it is part of the broader work that we are doing so that we can develop further attractions, be it in rural areas, be it in townships, so that we can develop much more experiences. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The Honorable Mgebu.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Minister, there's been a whole, a lot of, stuff that has been said by the ANC, speaking to the hearts of many of us, radical economic transformation. Now, your department is strategic and key to that, but I want to know, because these programs, they tend to fail. In the rural areas, what is the plan? And if you have already moved in that space, how successful, is your department in ensuring that the rural people are empowered and there is transformation that your department is driving? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, sir. Minister.
Thank you very much once more, Honorable Chair. Indeed, this is one sector where we think the issue of radical economic transformation can be implemented, because it is part of the world agenda to ensure that we practice sustainable tourism. And sustainable tourism means including our people. It means developing their products. It means ensuring that we spread tourism to benefit people in rural areas, in townships, or in areas where attractions are. So as part of the work that we are doing, we are looking into various angles where we're looking into skilling our people in rural areas. Our skills development programs have been benefiting people even coming from rural areas, and a lot of them have found permanent employment, but we also are looking into other forms of ensuring that they get into being entrepreneurs themselves. So in the rural areas, we have identified various infrastructure projects that we are involved in. We are also working on a broader scale as part of the ocean economy to identify products that we think, together with the rural areas, it's products where we are able to even assist them to be ready for investors as they will be coming, so that they partner with them. And for us, those successes are evident in the fact that even the identified kind of projects as part of the initial phases of the ocean economy, where already we have identified products that would be up to the tune of about 21 billion. It's products that are within our communities, identified with our communities. We are putting back and packaging together for investment, and also prioritizing in terms of even our product development program and market access that we are providing for our SMMEs as we identify them across the value chain. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Honorable members, that was my last supplementary on this question. Minister, we move to the next question. It was posed by the Honorable Faber. That is question number 294.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. First and foremost, as I am about to tackle this question, I wish to convey our sincere condolences to those who happen to be victims of crime, who would have come to our shores, because continuously we want to ensure that South Africa is the best destination, that people must find happiness, peace, and enjoy the kind of offerings that South Africa continues to offer, and that are the envy of the whole world. In the light of the question, Chair, in the case of the incident that involved the Dutch at the OR Tambo, South African tourism immediately engaged with the relevant parties to facilitate the sharing of information for the monitoring of developments and for the communication to the relevant stakeholders. Safety of tourists is a collective responsibility of all South Africans. This is why the President launched what we call the We Do Tourism campaign. A single attack on a tourist is one but too many, and none of us should look away as it is an attack on the livelihood of the 1.5 million that I mentioned earlier and their families who are working both directly and indirectly in our sector. We fully support the cabinet that sanctioned an integrated strategy of the security cluster, and we participate fully because we have a direct interest in the matter. And already the cluster has made significant progress in terms of arrests in some of these cases. The steps that we took to prevent similar incidents at the level of businesses, we create a lot of awareness that is drawn through the safety tips that are often handed to patrons as they check in into our establishment. And as part of this, within the scope and mandate of the department, we have introduced Tourism Monitors Program, which is a program to see young people placed at tourist attraction sites to serve as first point of call when tourists need assistance. They will also ensure that a branded, knowledgeable, friendly face is available on site in times of need for tourists, and their training, amongst others, include tourist guiding, first aid, customer service, tourism data and information handling, and safety awareness. These prepare them to be tourist service agents on the ground. And globally, we continue to have bilateral relations, and we are also able to drive a message about the efforts the country's security establishments are dealing with in these kinds of disgraceful conducts. This has gone a long way in restoring the confidence of the respective markets internationally. And we have met and collaborated with the Department of Police, and which has enabled us to collectively respond in terms of effective support to the tourists. And in the case of the incident at hand, I immediately engaged with the Minister Mbalula, and we jointly reached out to the tourists to establish their immediate needs and their required support. Information exchange with industry and subs was also a critical step in ensuring effective and informed response to the challenge. And I would also like to express our gratitude to the embassy for the cooperation, the Dutch embassy for the cooperation and in the manner they worked with us in supporting our Dutch tourists after the last month's incident. Chairperson, in doing tourism, we must all condemn these shameful acts wherever they occur, but most importantly, we must not allow these criminals the pleasure of disrupting our lives. I thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The Honorable Fawa.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, we just heard that the Minister told us that they acquired information on this case, for instance, and that there's a tourist monitor program with friendly faces where the tourist service agents will assist people like this. But apparently this did not happen. So in the Western Cape, where the DA governs, there are proper protocols when things like this happen. The Province Visitor Safety and Support Program is established.
Just don't drown the speaker on the floor.
Yes, as I say, in the Western Cape, the DA established a Province Visitor Safety and Support Program, Tourist Victims Support Program, and a Tourist Safety and Security Unit, which all serve to ensure the tourist interest in the province when it's considered and when things go wrong. Various reactive measures kick in. Now, it's nice to have programs, but if they don't kick in, it doesn't help. Such as facilitating trauma counseling as well, and helping to contact family and friends, facilitating embassy consul involvement, etc. And also using the legal process with the
And
police.
you are coming to your supplementary.
Why has the National Department failed implementing these measurements? A failure which has brought international bad press after the bus Dutch tourists were held up and immediately went back home.
Honorable Minister.
Exactly as I was saying, Chair, The moment you'd find that Western Cape thinks that it is not part of South Africa, becomes the challenge, because this is part of the whole of government's effort to make sure South Africa is a destination of choice. All provinces have got mechanisms and we are working in an integrated way. And the additional program that we put on of tourism monitors is over and above what government as a whole in all 9 provinces is working to ensure that we make sure these kinds of incidents do not happen, because we continue to make sure that South Africans themselves, responsible South Africans, are not the very ones who go out of the world to tell bad stories about South Africa or make themselves to be better than the others. Because when we go out, we sell Destination South Africa. And Destination South Africa is not Cape Town, it is South Africa. And for all of us, we want to make sure all our hotels are filled to capacity. Everybody comes and experience the whole of South Africa. And in that way, if they experience the whole of South Africa, it means they spend more time, they spend more money, and we then sustain the jobs, we grow the economy of our country, not of a particular province. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, ma'am. The Honorable Mthethwa.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Order. Fundis, Quebec.
Minister, after this incident, did you have any plan in place that you developed with the Department of SAPS to make it sure that the same thing does not happen again throughout South Africa, not in Western Cape alone?
The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mthethwa. As I indicated, that the entire government could not sit back and leave it to the Department of Police. It had to be an integrated effort by entire government, because tourism is one of the key 6 growth sectors of the economy. So we are part of the integrated approach and also attempt to ensure that all of us are part of growing this economy. Minister Mbalula, in his continuous interventions, has made sure that he pulls all of us together, and as part of ensuring that we make South Africa a safe destination, we are ensuring that all our key points, there's rigorous effort to detect some of these even before they happen. But for incidents that would have happened, there is prompt response and priority attention to ensure that those matters are dealt with. The kind of assistance and support that needs to be given is given at a prompt time, and we also use our relations with the countries to also communicate and make sure that we allay fears, because incidents do happen. There's no way that we can say or think that in the spate of the travel of the 1.2 currently traveling people throughout the world, there won't be incidents, but we want to keep them to the minimal as much in South Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. The Honorable Klimbi.
Ndiyabulela Sihlalo. Ndiyabulela nakuMinister ngenkcazelo yakhe malunga nokhuseleko lwabakhenkethi eMzantsi Afrika. Minister, ndiyavuya kakhulu xa seniuqalile lo mcimbi noMinister wamapolisa. Kodwa bendingecebisa ukuthi njengokuba abakhenkethi ngabantu ababalulekileyo kweli lizwe, abafana ngelinye ixesha ungathi ngoonozakuzaku, ii-diplomats, ingaske xa nicebisana nibe nebantu abaqeqeshwa abaspecial ukujongana nabakhenkethi. Ndiyayivakela ithethwa ngugxa wam walapha exela ngeNtshona Koloni. Kutsha nje sisanda kudutyulelwa abantu airport. Sinengxaki ye-gangsterism kweli lizwe akumbi apha eNtshona Koloni ihamba phambili. Ndifuna ukuthi ke minister beningecebisa mna ukuba nibe ne-specialized security kungaziswa uqobo lwamapolisa aphethe izibhamu ecakwa abakhenkethi. Enkosi kakhulu ngenxaxheba eseniyithathile. Thank you.
Thanks. The Honorable the Minister.
Eneneni sikhangela abantu abasenzela ingcebiso ezinjalo ukwenzela basibonakale ukuba sonke sisebenzela ekubeni eli lizwe lethu ibe lilizwe elizawuhlala lisizisa abakhenkethi ukuze kuzotshintsha imeko yokuhlala nempilo yabantu bethu. Eli phulo lethu silisungule phaya Gauteng province le tourism monitors sinenjongo zokuba sili spread kumZantsi Afrika uphela kuba bona bohlukile kwaba bakwa safety and security bayoqeqeshwa nokusondela kwinto yezibhamu kuba senzela ukuba kubone uba i-tourism yindlela yokuba abantu babe noqhagamshelwano bafundane kufundwe inkcubeko kubukwe ubuhle kukwazi ukukhangelwana kuba abakhenkethi namhlanje bakhangelana ukuba babuye benze umahluko kubomi babantu ebebeyobavakashela. So ngaloo ndlela xa kukho izibhamu bangoyika. So yiyo le nto sineleli phulo lezi tourism monitors basenzela abantu abazakwenza laa nto sithi yi-people to people contact ukuze kukwazi nokuba kufikelelo nabantu nabangayazi bona uba kukhona ukhenketho olwenzekayo ngokuba bafikelwa ngabakhenkethi batsho banze kube kwixabiso lale nto ilukhenketho kuba ukhenketho lubaluleke nakumntu otshayela esitrateni. Ngokutshayela kwakhe kwenza into yoba idolophu le ibe yindawo eklini umkhenkethi anomisa abone tyhini yindawo le endinokhe ndisele namanzi kuyo. Ndiyabulela.
Honorable members, I proceed to question number 301. That is a question posed by the Honorable Matebula. Honorable Minister, 301.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Chair, we take these allegations very seriously, and I would like to urge the honorable member to do the honorable thing and provide us with more information, because at times when samples get taken by the Department of Labor, it may not reach to a certain establishment where the honorable member may have identified the kind of what is happening. So in this regard, we would appreciate that information so that we can take appropriate steps. Exploitation of one by another is what our forebears like Oliver Reginald Tambo fought for tirelessly. And as a country, we subscribe to Global Code on Tourism Ethics that was approved at the last General Assembly of the United Nations World Tourism Organization. With the recent approval of this Global Framework Convention on Tourism Ethics, member countries are therefore no doubt have to ensure that they prioritize this and they take seriously to ensure that all tourists practice sustainable, responsible, and ethical tourism. And importantly, pressure from tourism consumers is assisting in raising awareness about exploitation globally. Our awareness raising about the responsible tourism standard has also created awareness about acceptable conduct. The Department of Labor has developed sectoral determination for the hospitality sector in regulating wages, working hours, and other basic conditions of employment for workers in the hospitality sector. The Department of Labor also conducts regular unannounced checks on establishments and also raises awareness on the sectoral determination. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. The Honorable Matebula. The Honorable Matebula. Honorable Matebula Kona, Imani, I know my job. Please take your seat. Please take your seat. I'm ruling on this matter. Take your seat. Honorable members, Honorable Matebula is in the house. She has not indicated to me that she has laryngitis or she cannot speak. The rule says that the first supplementary goes to the person who poses this question. Imasis, I have been asking why the Honorable Mukwili is going to make a supplementary question in her own right, not to replace Honorable Matebula, because Honorable Matebula is in the house. I am advised that in my absence, because the Honorable Nyambi was presiding and he had posed a question, arrangements were made that somebody else deal with that question because he was presiding and therefore could not deal with the question from this chair. That is the advice I have received. Honorable Matebula, if you do not have a supplementary, no, you cannot. Honorable Matebula, if you do not have a supplementary, I will allow Honorable Mukwili to make a supplementary.
Before I make a supplementary question, Chair, a person who briefed you about this matter, who briefer according to the resolution that was taken in this house. Honorable Mutara, in her absence, stood up and says the rules of this house doesn't say if you are not absent, you can't take a question. It says if you are unable as a member to take a question, it's allowed for a question to be referred to someone else. And we even asked, I even asked, is that what is going to happen in the future? The following day, I took a question from the EFF, I refer it to the DA. It was attended to, a DA member was allowed to take that question as the main person was not in the house. That is the resolution that was taken by this house, and we were assured that from that day onwards, that is how things are going to happen. Yes. We can go to Hansard. We can go to Hansard, and then we can go to Hansard, ma'am, and listen what was the resolution on those 2 days about the questions. So that is why today, Honorable Matebula is not feeling well. That is why I informed the Chief Whip and I informed the table that Honorable Matebula is not feeling well. I will be responsible for her question, because it has been a system that was adopted last time.
Honorable Member, the note that I have in front of me simply says that you will take over question number 301. It does not give reasons why. 2, that Honorable Mutara interprets the rules in a particular way. I will go and check on Hansard. But honorable members, if a member is in the house, that member must be competent until, that is why I said, if the Honorable Mukwili had said in this note that Honorable Matebula is unable because akakwazi ukuthetha or something, I would not have had an issue with that. But the note does not say so. It simply says you are taking over the question. And since she is there, I apply the rule as I know it. Honorable Mukwili, the address you are going to give is to make your supplementary question.
I think we need to be honest to ourselves as members here, and we need to treat each other equally. I have never ever written a note and a reason why I'm doing that. I've never done that. If today, whenever notes are written, I must ki tlhagise the reason as EFF will do so. We have never done that, Honorable Chair, and it has never came to our attention that if we need to address both the chief whip and the table, we need to come up with reasons why. We know that the member, if he is unable to take a question, we inform the table that this member is unable to take the question, but we don't come
No,
with
ma'am.
reasons why.
When the member is not in the
I
house.
think if we need to do that,
I do
it's
not-
not a problem. Now we
Honorable
agree.
Mukwele, I do not wish to
But-
take the whole day on this matter. I am simply saying, please take your seat. I'm simply saying, honorable members, when a member is not in the house and arrangements have been made, we have never asked to be given the reasons. On that score, you would be right. But when a member, no, ma'am, don't interject. When a member is in the house, please give me the respect to respond to you. When a member is in this house, that member, unless it is indicated that a member is infirm to a point where the member cannot respond, even though I lead him physically. And I'm saying the note that was sent to me, and I see the Honorable Matebula. If the note had said to me, she cannot speak, or uyagula, I would then have not asked. I would immediately have said, there is an arrangement, even though I lead him, because once a member is in the house, then we want to understand why another member must take over. Because we take it that all members are equal and all members are competent to do as they put. So I want to give the first supplementary to the Honorable Mukwele, because she had raised her hand for supplementaries, but also the note had said that she would make supplementaries. Honorable Mukwele, your supplementary question.
Chair, I'm still on this matter.
No, you are on a supplementary question, Honorable
But
Mukwele.
can I address you in terms of the rules?
I have undertaken to go to Hansard to look at what
But I
the
would-
presiding officers, because that decision would have been taken by the person who was presiding. Even if Honorable Mutara said it from the floor, the ruling would have come from the chair. So I will go to Hansard, and if I will go to Hansard and I will come back to this house on that matter. For now, I want progress on this question. There is a member who has a bereavement. The Plains, Tsedianku, Eastern Cape, I'm sure we are not that cruel to keep this minister here because we are now academic about this. No, we will rush because of the bereavement, because we are human enough, Honorable Mukwele.
We need to do things right. If the Honorable Minister, mong wa lapa la wa gago o tlhokafetseng o robale ka kagiso, but we need to do things properly,
We
Chair.
are doing
I
things
agree with
properly.
you. We need to do. There's no rule that address the matter that you have said to us.
Which rule?
The rule that you are saying, or if a member is unable to speak, whereas she's in the house, reason must be given. There's no rule that says that, Chair. I'm pleading with you and I respect you. I will never do that to you, but I'm telling you that this house agreed in your absentia. You were not here when this house agreed, and they were doing the very same thing that they are doing today. When we asked, they were reacting the very same way that they are reacting. Today it's another ruling. They are reacting the very same way because all they do is to protect and to
Honorable-
defend wrong things. I'm going to my
Honorable
supplementary
Mukwele,
question. Wa minister, supplementary question, Arona, but we are not happy about the treatment we are getting. It's for the fourth time that we are raising this matter, that we are not happy in a manner in which this house is treating EFF members.
Your supplementary, ma'am.
Yes, I'm coming there. Chair, Honorable.
Order. No, members. The honorable member, you are protected. Please continue your supplementary.
Honorable Minister, it has come to our attention that most of our employees, especially in the hospitality industry, are grossly mistreated in terms of them being employed via the labor brokers. Now, my question is that, have you ever met with the sister department, which is the Department of Labor, and tried to address the matter of labor broking, especially in tourism industry? If yes, what are the updates and how are we going to assist our brothers and sisters to make sure they are getting what is due to them in terms of the basic conditions of employment? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. As I indicated to the Honorable Member, such a question for that particular detail was not what we were responding to. But the Department of Labor, as I indicated earlier on, has set standards for what has to happen and has made sectoral determination in the hospitality sector. And we are requesting the Honorable Member, when they pick up such, they must give us the information, because we have various departments that we have very close relationships with that have got a very direct impact in terms of how we are dealing with matters in tourism, be it your Department of Labor or Treasury, because even the Department of Treasury had established an immigration inspectorate that is looking into some of the issues as where the issues in relation to the question, but also has set up standards in terms of compliance with employing immigrants into the country, because we want them protected as well, so that they are not exploited. Neither should South Africans who happen to find themselves in the sector to be exploited. So if such matters come up and are very specific, we are able to directly link with the department and we can be able to follow up on such matter. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The Honorable Makwe.
Thank you, Chairperson. To the Minister, we do concur that any place, particularly a workplace, where people are exploited is not acceptable. Now, I wanted to, because we concur in that, wanted to hear, Minister, are you prepared to utilize the grading council that grades hotels and guest houses to also begin to look at how the workers are being treated in these institutions, and to consider those unfair labor practices to also impact on how exactly the grading of these tourist destinations are managed? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chair. In terms of our new approach, we really are expanding and open mandate, not to really, streamline ourselves into tourism and hospitality, and not to look at the broader things as they impact on tourism. That is why we have adopted an approach of across the value chain, so that we look into what also inputs into the growth of tourism. But in terms of the mandate of the Grading Council, it would not necessarily be the Grade Council, but it would be the approach with which we employ in working with the sister departments, because we have bilateral meetings that we sit on whenever a matter that happens to be outside of the mandate of the Department of Tourism, as it passes to that respective department, even outside formal bilateral meetings, to be able to point out such and such matters be dealt with. So, Honorable Member, indeed, all of us would want that this sector be an attractive sector. At the moment, with its long hours and practical work that happens, we continue to want to make it to be a sector that also attracts young people, and everybody who comes into the sector can really feel and put in whatever effort to make it succeed. So issues of exploitation, all of us, we want to rally behind to make sure they don't happen. If there are such incidents, please assist us as South Africans so that we can point it out. Whoever makes a contribution must be rewarded accordingly. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Dlamini.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Honorable Minister, I do understand that you do not have specific incident about exploitation in the Western Cape where the DA claims to be governing. The majority of employees that are working in the hospitality industry.
Honorable Dlamini, please take your seat. Honorable Faber.
Chairperson, just to set the record straight, not where we claim but to govern, but where we do govern. Thank you.
Your point is sustained, sir. Honorable Dlamini, the Western Cape is governed by the DA. Can we proceed, please? Order, members. Can we proceed?
You're putting yourself into deep trouble with me. Okay, I didn't want to say it myself, Chair. In the Western Cape, where the DA is governing, the majority of employees in the hospitality industry are black foreign nationals. If it is not because of the DA exploitation, one is wondering, what is it? Does it mean that black people in the Western Cape do not have skills to work in the hospitality industry? If it is not that, what is the department doing together with the DA in the Western Cape in terms of foreign nationals? Are they not exploited?
Honorable Minister. Order, members, order. It does seem to introduce a new element into the question, but I'm leaving it up to you whether you are able to respond to it or not, because it does say that you must be aware that there are foreign nationals who are working.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I hope for the first time the DA would own up to that statement that they are exploiting people in the industry, which is a matter that we need to follow up. Honorable Chair, the industry or the sector has got quite a sizable number of foreign nationals who are working in it. That one is very clear. And from what we established earlier on in our interactions with the industry was the fact that they would indicate that our people do not have skills to work in the sector. Hence, our skills development program as government, our concerted skills development program, where we said, here are young people, open opportunities for them so that they get skilled in the fields of chefs that we identified, on scarce skills that we identified in the various other skills development programs that we have been embarking on. And we had commitment as part of that from the industry to absorb such young people. And at the same time, then what it also opens up is whether establishments open opportunities for such young people. And the fact that you'd find that in smaller areas or in small towns, outside your bigger towns, you would not find many establishments. So that is where you would not have a lot of young people having opportunities to be trained in establishments in order to get such opportunities. But we are working very closely with the industry. It is coming, and in the coming week, we'll be giving a report on the study we've conducted on the figures that we have, and we'll be outlining our program moving forward. But critical to this, it's not something that is unknown, but it is where industry complies to the legislation as it applies into the country to have a certain number, not beyond a certain number of people who come from out of the country who can work within their establishment. And it is work that I think together with the Department of Labor we still need to intensify, because some of them still go beyond the number that is applicable in terms of Treasury regulations. Thank you very much.
Ma'am. Honorable members, we proceed to question number 297. That question was posed by the Honorable Khayla. He is not in the house. I have no instruction. Yes, ma'am. You are on the question, Mr. Khayla.
No, when you talk to me,
You are addressing me on the issue of question 297.
On a point of order, fela hlemme. Ke batlo botsa minister gore na re sefane sa ge ke mang. Hai. Ke botsa go no itseng mo ntlong mo.
Please take your seat, ma'am. Honorable Minister, will you please just pronounce your surname slowly so that all of us can pronounce it properly? I think that is because abanye bathi xhaso, abanye bathi xhasa.
I will even go further to also teach her how to pronounce it, and other members. You just close your jaws and press your tongue to the outside, and you can pronounce. It's Xhosa.
Kio Memokwele o utlwile yano. Memokwele. Ra leboga mma. Honorable members, I have no instruction on the question ka Tatu Khayla, so we pass that question. We move on to question 290, posed by the Honorable Mohai. Minister.
Thank you once more, Honorable Chair. Safety of our tourists is a collective responsibility of all South Africans. That is why, as I indicated earlier on, the President launched the We Do Tourism campaign in May this year. A single attack on a tourist is one too many, and none of us should look away, as it is an attack on the livelihood of the 1.5 million and their families working directly and indirectly in our sector. At a level of businesses, awareness is driven through safety tips that are often handed over to the patrons as they check in the establishments. And as part of what is within the scope and mandate of the department, we have introduced the Tourism Monitors program, as I indicated earlier on, and we will ensure that these monitors are branded, which means tourists, as they land or come to those points or those tourist spots, can identify such people so that they can feel being safe. They can also get information. They can also be directed to tourist guiding sites, but at the same time, their needs be also tackled. Globally, as we indicated, the world today is practicing sustainable tourism. We're promoting responsible tourism. We're promoting tourism where all of us have to ensure that we preserve what we have for generations to come. So we continue to drive the message, and we would want all South Africans to drive the message of all of us to do tourism and do it sustainably. And sustaining it, it means it has to happen in every area, even where there is no man in blue, no police who is wearing a suit or somebody who is carrying a gun, but we ensure that South Africans themselves become those kind of people who can preserve and provide that safety to our tourists. And we continue to ensure that our industry provides the kind of skills that are required. So it provides opportunities for young people and young women to enter into the tourism space, because our pilot program in Gauteng saw 200 young people starting to be tourism monitors, and we're going to roll out that to the entire country. So we're looking at ensuring that this can go a long way in restoring the confidence of the respective markets internationally, but also that it does not only target international visitors, it also contributes to making South Africans themselves, as they travel, but also as they move around amongst their communities, to also feel safe. So, Chairperson, in doing tourism, we must all condemn these shameful acts wherever they occur, but most importantly, we want all of us to be ambassadors of our beautiful country. I thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The Honorable Muhai.
Thanks very much, Honorable Chairperson. And Minister, thanks for the response regarding strengthening of policy measures to enhance tourism potential in our country. As is the case with established economies, the practice of working and increasing coordination with the civil society organizations regarding awareness and also sharing research that is conducted in terms of heritage sites, are we in this regard also following suit to ensure that we work with a civil society organization and promote the significance of tourism industry in the economy? Thanks.
The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you very much once more, Honorable Chair, and for the question. Indeed, because South Africa is not yet in that high level of being an established economy, we still care much more as we continue to develop, because we really want our people to find a space to also be part of the mainstream economy. So every small incident as it happens matters for us. Honorable Chair, in the recent past 3 weeks, I went to Las Vegas after that incident. You know, there, it's not like it even happened when so many lives were lost. And in South Africa, we care even when not a single life, just the threatening of lives, for us is something we care about, because we want people to feel safe, we want people to come and experience our country, we want people to interact with us and understand who we are, because we still feel that through that, it is a point of where we can continue to develop our people. So our awareness programs are not now focusing on tourism programs. We are spreading into the entire nation. We are working very closely with various government departments, local government, up to the lowest level, because for us it is very important, and we are excited that we also are developing further, even into the African continent, so that when travelers also come, because South Africa continues to be a long-haul destination, when they come here, they would also want to touch base and see other African countries. That spread of awareness, that spread of safety, that spread of, experiences that would meet the standards spreads throughout. So we are working tirelessly to ensure that we create that awareness. We share data, we share research, and also ensure that we promote responsible tourism and sustainable tourism throughout the world. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The Honorable Zwane.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honorable Minister, I want to believe that there would be a survey in your department that seeks to inform us about where these criminal tendencies are, urban areas versus rural areas. Because I want to believe that maybe it would be wise to invest in tourism development in rural areas. And local government, I think, would come in handy as well in assisting both in tourism development and tourism marketing. Don't you think that maybe it would be, I don't know if the department does have conditional grants to assist local government with regards to tourism development and tourism marketing. I want to believe that it would serve a much more good purpose to develop tourism activities in safer spaces like in the rural communities. I just wanted to know if you do have grants to assist in that regard. Thank you.
The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, once more. Indeed, Honorable Member, we do have grants, and for us, we want to turn around even those areas that are crime-ridden to be areas where people can get back, because in some you'll find that perceptions, because you'd find that people would say it's not safe to go to a township, when in fact there's nothing in the township, but they are just missing out on experiences and the heritage that they would find in those townships. So through these efforts, we're pulling together to ensure that our townships become such areas where we can, unlock the potential that is there, but also bring out, in terms of the culture, the heritage, the kind of life that travelers are looking for and getting closer to our communities. We have several sets of grants that we are rolling out. One has been part of the expanded public works program, where it concentrates on infrastructure development as well as skills development. That's where all our skills development are funded in. And one latest development around that was where we, last week, the graduation of about 16 women who were trained in executive development program, whose program was designed specifically to make sure that women who happen to be in the industry but cannot get into executive positions are given a qualification, and 5 of them, just as they were graduating, were already promoted to be general managers in big industry establishments. So we do have those grants, but we also, additional to it, because some of the small and medium enterprises or previously disadvantaged who have not been in the bigger space had programs of market access, they had programs of funding, they had programs of skills and several other things that they indicated to us. So we have grants that are meant to assist, and interventions in terms of our incentive program that are meant to assist them. We have, for instance, a contingent of about 90 that we identified from rural areas in rural provinces and in all provinces, who have new products that then are part of our market access. They've been traveling the world according to where their markets are relevant. They have been trained, and we are taking care of them until we are certain that they really now are in the mainstream of the economy. So we continue to do that. It tackles market access, it tackles issues of skills, tackles issues of funding. This week, as I indicated earlier on, we will be outlining the transformation fund that seeks to look into issues of operating the establishment, so that we don't leave them after giving them the infrastructure or giving them the skills. you're not addressing the issue of operations and also marketing their product. So we'll be outlining that we had invited the honorable members to be part of that transformation summit Monday and Tuesday next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. The Honorable Tsimbi.
Ndiyabulela sihlalo, ndiyabulela minister, ndiphakamela nje ukuxhasa kwi as ambassadors uthetha ngazo bekwi provincial week yethu apha eWestern Cape. Kukho isakhiwo esikhulu esiduru ebendicimba senziwe ngurhulumente walapha eWestern Cape kuthiwa imuseum. Ngalamini bekuvulwa ngalo and sicreate imisebenzi emininzi esasakhiwo isikakhulu kuchazwe ngale department yakho eqeshe abantu zeambassador babona abantwana bebenemixwayo pha bemane bebonisa itourism ngalamini ivulwa nga more than 5,000 yabakhenkethi abafike pha ndiye ndothuka kanti lesa sakhiwe ngurhulumente efake isandla kwi-pension fund ndatsho ndazingca ukuba nam ndiyi-shareholder yesasakhiwe ndifuna ukuthi qhubeka ubheke phambili minister ngalo msebenzi wakho. Thank you very much.
There was no supplementary really. Honorable Minister, it was just a compliment. That puts paid to question number 290. We go to question number 295. It was posed by the Honorable Faber. The Minister.
Thank you once more, Honorable Chair. South African tourism, through their in-country offices, media partners, government communication and information services, and online platforms, shared the official media statements covering the incident on the Dash tourists, as well as other incidents that affected tourists in South Africa for all stakeholders to access. The message communicated the seriousness with which the incident was treated by government. I even have copies of the statement should honorable members see proof to this effect. And the statement issued highlighted the ongoing police investigations and the efforts being made by the South African Police Service and AXA to address these incidents. And honorable member, as I indicated, for us just the threat even before the incident happened, even a loss of one life is way too many for us. We want to make sure South Africa is a sought-after destination and we can bring in as many tourists in line with our strategy for the next 5 years to bring in 5 million tourists into the country, 4 million international and also 1 million domestic tourists. Thank you, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Minister. The Honorable Faber.
Thank you, Chairperson. I just want to make clear on the answer, and this is that the Minister say that she did contact the embassies on this. Before I go on with the follow-up question, Chairperson.
Minister.
I just want to know, did she agree on that?
Is that your supplementary question?
No, the supplementary question, with the shocking murder increase in crime rate stats that was presented in Parliament this week by the Minister of Police, did you already speak to the Minister on the knock-on effects on tourism economy? And what approach will you take under the circumstances to not lose tourists that will now be even more worried to visit our beautiful country, if not? Will you commit to undertake a productive approach and report back to the NCOP? As this embassies do let their governments know of these stats, and they actually protect their own citizens by, at the embassies, warning tourists of the crime. So my question is, Chairperson,
you're protected, sir. Please proceed.
Chairperson. So my question is, will you commit to undertake a productive approach and report back to the NCOP?
The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you very much. Maybe the honorable member just wanted to hear the word embassies. I haven't mentioned embassies in my response, and I have indicated that in our in-country offices we communicated, through GCIS we communicated, online platforms we communicated. Maybe you can check that, Honorable Member. I did not specifically say we communicated to embassies, but we have communicated, as I indicated, even on the incident of the Dutch tourists, with the specific embassy in both countries, both in the country and overseas. And as and when there are such incidents, we take also responsibility to do so. And I also want to say, Honorable Member, unfortunately, you know, with South Africa, or some South Africans, they want to communicate bad messages even where there are no incidents. So I don't understand why the Honorable Member wants us to just communicate to all embassies even when there's nothing that has happened in a particular embassy. What do you want to communicate? Do you want to communicate and make tourists not to come to the country? I hope that Honorable Member is not implying that. But as I indicated earlier on, Honorable Member, this is a concern from the entire government, not just the Department of Tourism. We are working as a collective of government, and this approach is coming from the level of the presidency to ensure that South Africa remains to benefit out of one sector, which is tourism, that can grow its economy, that can turn around the situation of the economy of the country. So issues of safety and security continue to be the priority of the country, as you would have heard even from the Minister of Police's statement as he was releasing the crime statistics. It continues to be a responsibility not only of government, but all South Africans. So we want South Africans to rally behind the strategy of government to combat crime in the country, so that we make South Africa safe for its citizens and safe for tourists as they come into our country, because we have much more to offer. So help us, honorable members, to carry on that message and make sure it happens, because if we participate where we stay and also participate in the communities where we come from, we can contribute into the reduction of crime. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The Honorable Mteto.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honorable Minister, do you have a program that you can teach the citizen of South Africa to rally behind this program that you are presenting now? As we are saying, all of us, we need to be vigilant and make sure that we fight this scourge of attack of tourists, not going to embassies and talk bad about our country, but able to contribute positively so that you can make it sure that the people are coming in our country and enjoy the benefits that we have. Thank you.
The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair and Honorable Member Mteto. Indeed, our campaign, We Do Tourism, seeks to reach to all South Africans, even with you, honorable members, that let's get into our communities, because as long as South Africans would not feel part of being part of this value chain of what everybody talks about to be creating the jobs that we're looking for, that is contributing into the GDP, by feeling that they don't participate, which is where now we come in to assist in the identification of those products, be it in rural areas, be it in townships, but also encouraging them to participate, be it in skills development programs, but also in the small and enterprise development programs where we train them to be, to run their own businesses, train them to run those businesses and open markets and create markets for them, which is part of the program that we are running. And also making South Africans to really value what they are doing and value what is being done. Knowing awareness goes a long way. We think that we can go a long way. This is where we're talking sustainable tourism. This is where we're talking inclusive growth. It is where our people can be assisted to identify these kinds of products. And we come in as government with our interventions. But as honorable members, even in terms of the work that you do in our communities, that we get back, encourage them and give them the information that would empower them to participate. I think it would go a long way. Thank you very much.
Honorable Minister, that was the last supplementary for you. We wish you well, ma'am. You may leave. Honorable members, we then go on to our questions to the Minister of Economic Development. The Deputy Minister is in the house. The first question to you, sir, or to the Minister, is the one from the Honorable Mtimunye. That is question 332.
Thanks, Honorable Chair, and thanks for the opportunity that we have been provided to share some economic information with the House. First and foremost, the Competition Commission imposed a 1.4 billion fine to construction industries that have been found colluding. And this is sending a message that no company can use its dominance, abuse its dominance to crowd out small and emerging contractors. Secondly, the minister also used the opportunity to engage the affected companies, to persuade them, to say, given the situation that they are in, could they not consider committing to putting together voluntary measures that will contribute to transformation of the industry. And this has given rise to what they call Tirisan. This partnership, in this partnership, companies offered percentage sale of their construction and civil engineering business of part of the equity to black owners identified by them, ranging from 25% to 100%. And in this instance, an example is Murray and Roberts that has sold its total 100% to a black-owned company. Other companies like Avenge, Greenacre, Group 5, Basil Red, WHO, Stephen Stocks, and Rubex are finalizing their deals with identify emerging black contractors. It is anticipated that not less than 20 black-owned companies or investment vehicles will benefit from this transformation committee, and this will be announced in due course. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. The Honorable Mtimunye.
Thank you, Chair. You know, Honorable Chair, I am very particular with the narrative of once empowered, always empowered. It has been bothering me for some time. Minister, Deputy Minister, how do you monitor the situation that that kind of a thing does not happen in this particular case in the aftermath of the verdict by the Competitions Commission, so that we do not see the same big companies, be they black-owned, not benefiting many times at the expense of the emerging contractors?
The Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Chair. In this case, we have given the it's a discussion that has taken 2 years. And we have given it to the industry itself to show this commitment. And we allowed them to identify companies that they believe that they can actually sit there next to them and have confidence and handhold them. So when they give the 100% to that emerging company, in this case it was Intel, they didn't like abdicate the task of also hand-holding it until it is sustainable. And also its contract that it had within the country and in the continent to be with them. Can I also point out that one of the other commitments that they have made was to put on an amount of 1.5 billion that had to do with the development of the industry in general. So you give bursaries to engineers, to professionals, and so on, and also to assist, emerging companies to have capacity that will take them a little bit up. Some of the companies here will also be subcontracting and giving contractors to specific companies to lift them up in the next 5 years to a higher level than where they are now. And the contract is concrete and sealed. It's a formal contract that commit them to do so.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable Mhlanga.
Thank you, Chair. Let's welcome the response from the Minister. Perhaps I will be having one seeking clarity question. Focus on the women's entrepreneurs. The IDC has created a fund for a women's entrepreneurship. I just wanted to know, the fund was injected with 1 billion transformation and entrepreneurs scheme set up to finance marginalized groups, and including people with disability. So I just wanted to know whether is this fund assisting the cause, and how many companies that were able to be empowered, women's companies, including the other marginalized groupings. Thank you.
The Deputy Minister.
The Minister has taken a position that we shall use our institutions to drive transformation. So in the competition, in IDC, all what we'll use policy to ensure that transformation take place and we enforce it. So in all the measures, when we deal with measures or when we deal with any other, whether it's trade, we make sure that youth participation, women participation is taken, and people with disabilities are taken into account. In this case, the fund that was created in 1998, it was 300 million, which was dispersed to companies. But it was discontinued because when the minister engaged with the ITC, he thought that to hide behind just a 300 million is not enough. We need to start lifting up empowerment and build it in, not as a separate small thing that you're trying to make women to feel good, but as part of the program inside. And I must say, by today, last year alone, we have seen it moving from the IDC approving 3.2 billion rand that was given to women-owned companies, and which was constituting something like 178% increase in terms of support for women-owned companies. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. The Honorable Makwebu.
Deputy Minister, we now know that collusion in the construction industry is huge. And unfortunately, the Competition Commission could only investigate cases that took place after September 2006 because the Act itself does not operate retrospectively. Now, having said that, here is my question. Can you agree that it's time that your department should consider the amendment to the Act so that we could cover cases that occurred even before September 2006, because if this is left undone, it undermines the emergence of black contractors. If you don't agree with me, then why not?
The Honorable the Deputy Minister.
Will agree with you. Will agree with you that there is definitely a lot of things happening. And when we created this act, we are aware that we are venturing into a space that will not be concluding all the challenges at a time. And we knew that we will have to be organic and look at things and review from time to time. I think we'll be glad to notice that we are now having a debate, a discussion now, and a bill is going to be brought into Parliament and here that is looking at the amendment of the Act. Last time when we amended, we wanted to criminalize, and that was done. And now we're amending to reduce concentration and promote inclusion. So in that discussion, as we engage in it, probably that point, if it can be raised so that people, the public can debate that, it will be very helpful. But I must indicate that this act, it has actually become a very critical act that becomes an example to the whole world in South Africa. We have seen many people coming, even those that had acts before, they're beginning to come in and say, can we see how are you actually handling your matters? Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. The honorable members, we proceed to the next question. That question is 339, posed by the Honorable Magwebu to the Minister of Economic Development.
Chair. Corruption has an impact in economic growth wherever it occurs in the whole world. It has been acknowledged. Over the years, the negative impact of corruption on the economy has been echoed in national, global, and multinational organizations and institutions. Institutions like the World Bank and World Economic Forum have provided estimates of loss of GDP due to corruption. These estimates suggest costs are very large. However, they were not able to drill it down to the level of individual countries. The other complication that makes it to be like that is because it's difficult to measure the totality of the cost of corruption, because it's only those that we have seen, that we are reacting to, that you can measure. But you can't go deeper into those that are happening in the dark and those that are happening by manipulation of legal frameworks. You can't be able to deal with that. We are saying why South Africa is ranked 45 out of 176 countries, where first means corrupt, most corrupt. We have a reason to worry when there is so much noise around corruption, rent-seeking in our institution, and what you would call state capture. Thanks.
The Honorable Magwebu.
Deputy Minister, as you have considered yourself that corruption is rife and prevalent in South Africa, we are becoming the most corrupt country in the world. Now, I want to know from you, because there have been many voices who stood up against corruption because it undermines investor confidence and economic growth, and that, again, is common cause we agree, we have just considered as well. Now, why have you yourself, in your own conscience, stood up as the Economic Development Ministry and said, all those involved, state capture, Gupta leaks and all that corruption, 783 charges against Minister Zuma. Why have you kept quiet and not said that these issues must be dealt with and join the voices and be on public record? Or you're just towing a line typical of another ANC minister to survive?
Honorable Magwebu, you do know that you are actually pushing it. I'm going to leave it up to you, Deputy Minister, if you want to respond to this question.
No, thank you, Chair. Why are we not loud about it? The Minister Patel, in his budget speech in this House, he has said, where there are real and legitimate concerns about corruption and state capture, about the diversion of people's money to improperly benefit individuals. Our ability to forge partnership between the state and the rest of the society is seriously undermined. And it then outlined that all of us, call on all of us to pay attention to that and to deal with that. And we indicated that the Competition Commission is alert in terms of the private sector corruption, and we also pointed out that the minister has had a discussion with IDC to identify things that might be creating a climate, a conducive climate for corruption. For instance, the IDC now, its board has taken a decision that its members will never do business with IDC. It will never apply for loans in IDC. It will also expose and publicize people that are dealing with business with itself, so that people, if they have issues, tangible issues that they want to complain about, will deal with that. But just dealing with the issue of as to whether we are becoming a highest capital of corruption, we are 45 out of 176. So we are still, we are actually at the
Talk to me, talk to him through me, Deputy Minister.
Yeah. That shows, we haven't shown any step that are making us to grow up towards 76. We're actually there. And we have got strong institutions, of course, strong legislatures that are making sure that we don't move out of that. Instead, we should be able to go into a different direction.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. The Honorable Dlamini.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Thank you for the response, Honorable Deputy Minister. On the private sector corruption, as you've just said it now, I just want to check, why do we call corruption in the private sector collusion? And why is it not treated as crime as it is happening in the private sector? Because crime is crime. They are made to pay penalties or fines, yet corruption in the public sector is crime. Those who are to be arrested, they are arrested. Why this separation, and what is the impact in the economy of the country?
The Honorable the Deputy Minister.
The crime is crime and corruption is corruption, but it has got, in terms of the sectors, has got different definitions around them. For instance, if you manipulate laws to benefit yourself, or a group of people organize themselves to manipulate laws and manipulate people so that they can go and do things for them. In South Africa, it has come to be known as what? State capture. And so you can't say we are calling it state capture, therefore it's not corruption. It actually still remains corruption. So when we talk about collusion within the private sector, there are different types of corruption, so that when you deal with them, you must use a specific law to follow them up to the end. Because if you leave it open, it then creates a problem when you have to persecute. So that's why they call it, this one is collusion, this one is a bribe, this one, and then you follow it in a different format. That's the reason why it's like that, but are all corruption.
Thank you, Ra. Remakwe.
Thank you, Chairperson. Deputy Minister, my question would relate to what is in the original question, the second part, that talks about what actions the department is taking to ensure that South Africa is on a positive economic growth path. Mindful of the fact that government is not the only player in economic growth, but that the private sector has a very important contribution to make there as well. I would like to inquire from you, Deputy Minister, what is your experience as a department with regard to the preparedness as well as the contribution of the private sector to contribute towards our country's economic growth? Thank you.
Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Chair. Indeed, even the Minister has emphasized this point, that if we want to have a credible growth story, it must be anchored on an economy that is transformed to be inclusive, and it must be anchored on deep-end partnerships. If you were to ask me in terms of what the private sector is actually doing in South Africa, I can say that currently, in terms of investments and contribution to job creation, the private sector is still dominating the sector in terms of investments. But the only thing that we are worried of is that it's stagnant over the years since 2009. It has been stagnant. It doesn't increase its own investment. Probably this is what we're investigating, we're interrogating, and we would have had the Minister of Finance engaging on this matter, on some of the issues that they're actually raising and showing discomfort on, and instructing us to begin to do certain things around them to be able to allow them to participate freely within the economy, including issues of a perception of us not being clear, our policy direction not being stable. And that's what we're anchoring now to get it to be done. And that's why also you see the Minister of Finance talking about 14 confidence boosting actions that we must take in order to ensure that our partnership becomes strong. But there are other things that the private sector have shown that they are beginning to come in, and one of them is the ones that have been announced by the minister yesterday, one of the commitments that they have made. Another one is the one that we have just spoken about in the construction company, that private sector is coming in and saying, yes, we can play a role in that. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable Ntebe.
No, Chair, thank you, DM. I think the silent narrative from our learned friends should be exposed. And you were very eloquent in exposing the difference that even if it's state capture or if it's corporate state capture, we still remain enthusiastic in getting rid of them. Now we know, and you know, that whether it's corruption in the private or in the public sector, it's bad for the economic growth because it erodes and displaces investor confidence. Would you concede, Minister, that you've just said 1.4 billion has been fines given to the corruption in the private sector, which sometimes we complain that it's not even 1% of the total turnovers. And this probably will form part of the amendments to the bill. But would you concede that the same enthusiasm to fight state capture, it is necessary to fight corporate state capture? Thank you, Minister.
Deputy Minister.
Thanks very much, Chair. Anything that looks like corruption or anything that smells corruption, it's our duty that we should fight it with the vigor that we have. Whether it is called collusion, whether it's called corporate state capture, whether it's state capture.
Don't drown out the speaker.
To fight corruption, because corruption takes from what we're supposed to do for our people. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Honorable members, we proceed to question number 335, posed by the Honorable Khai.
Thank you very much, Chair. The 14-point plan was unveiled in July this year by the Minister of Finance and introduced a range of short-term and confidence-building measures. It is a 14 confidence-building initiative. It includes fiscal policy, financial sector and tax policy, leverage public procurement, recapitalization of SOEs, broader state-owned entities, private sector participating, costing developmental mandates, energy, South African Airways, telecommunication, post bank, minerals, and petroleum resources, broad-based socio-economic empowerment, and regulation on land holdings. These aspects, if you look at them, they are actually broad-ranging and touching across departments. Our focus is more on what is it that we can do with what we have. We have got a department and we have got institutions like the IDC, like the Competition Commission, and we have got also the Trade and Administration Commission. So how can we make use of that to be able to assist the minister to be able to realize this? Ours in the department, what we do is to exactly use those levers to be able to assist him to do that. And we're going to elaborate a little bit later in the next, in the other questions. I wouldn't like to take much of your time.
The Honorable Khai.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, and thank you, Honorable DM. Given that our economic rate is consistently revised downwards, will the 14-point plan be able to boost our economic growth? And attached to this question, whether we'll be able, given that we are trapped in a low growth situation, will we be able to achieve the radical economic transformation? Thank you.
Deputy Minister.
The 14 points, confidence building points, need to be treated not in separation with our commitment to the NDP, not to be treated separately from what we said we'll do inside the NDP, with what we have outlined in the new growth path. And it should not be treated indifferently from what we consolidated later to say, in our implementation of the NGP, we think that we are weaker in the following areas. And the President announced and say, our major focus will be on those weak areas which are in the 9-point plan. So the confidence building, I'm saying, in as much as we are trying to do that, outside investors and other people, other role players, has identified that we are weaklings in these specific areas. The SOEs, in our fiscal policy, in the different areas that have actually, we said we are going to have local procurement, but we are not so clear there. So those confidence building 14 points are meant to inject that energy that is going to trigger a development in all the areas, whether be it in beneficiation, which you have said, whether it's in agriculture and agro-processing, whether it's in manufacturing. So when you have done so, you'll be able to trigger to move into the next point. And that's why we're so thrilled, and we had confidence boosting even to us when we're implementing more and more of these measures. We saw a little bit of a relief in the first quarter of this year when the economy was picking up. And we want to put that resilience so that we keep it going up and up.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable Zwane.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honorable Minister, the Minister of Finance yesterday during the midterm budget policy statement made mention of a very important concept, that of startup funds, which is a collaborative effort of the Ministry for Finance, Ministry for Economic Development, and as well as Ministry for Science and Technology. What I wish to know is whether that fund has been completely established. If it is, what format is it going to take? And how is it going to be accessible? And what size of businesses are going to be benefiting from it? Because to me, it brought a lot of hope for the business sector. Thank you.
Let me say, government, in its implementation of the 9-point plan, from time to time, we identify areas of weakness that need boosting. Part of the areas that have actually come out strongly is whether when we develop and we mobilize our emerging contractors and women, are they able to participate in the industry without financial support? So we then create specific programs that have got to do with that. Such kind of a fund, the first one that we have done, we would have seen the Black Industrialist Special Program, which is funded in a specific way. And we would see that while we have established it in DTI, even in IDC have just disbursed 4.7 billion on that. So there's another one again that has been created. It's a number of initiatives. Another one that is going to be created that is focusing on agro-processing, which is a discussion between Minister of Finance and Minister of Economic Development and Minister of Agriculture and Forestry and Fisheries. They have created funding, a focus in IDC that focusing in that particular set. The one that Minister Gigaba was speaking to yesterday, it has got to do with an area of innovation, where we have got young people that are innovating. They create new things that can actually assist us in manufacturing. One of the examples that I can give you is one young man called Sulong that has created a gadget to save water leakages in toilets. And he has created now, out of the support, a specific setup support that assisted them from ITC, he has created 3 factories, 2 in Johannesburg and 1, I think, in Durban, where they are doing that. So they want to expand that into the ICT and in all the areas where our young people, there are actually a lot of young people that are actually doing that, and they are not assisted in that. So they are busy. There is a discussion in that in terms of how it must be created. It won't take long because the framework for it has already, we have got a framework in the other areas that we've done that I've just outlined now.
Thank you, Sir. Tatuma Kwef, the Honorable.
Deputy Minister, you know, I'm confused now. I don't know which plan are we following. There's too much plans. You know, a 14-point plan, 9-point plan, 6-point plan, NDP, you know, but it seems to me the only plan that is working is the Gupta plan. But be that as it may, here is my question for you. In fact, I put it to you that the instability in the ruling party right now undermines economic growth and development, and there's no plan that will succeed until, you know, there's stability and there's leadership provided. What is your comment, sir?
Order. Deputy Minister.
Thank you. Maybe to assist
order members.
Maybe to assist the honourable member. We have got a national development plan. So if you have in the Western Cape a provincial development plan, it doesn't make it different. It draws it from the main plan. So at the national level, when you say, how do we implement the NDP? You then come in 2010 and say, we
Honorable
shall focus
Mukweli,
on
do
the
not
following
drown out the
in order
speaker.
to accelerate our work towards meeting the NDP. We shall focus on the new growth path with the following things that are mentioned. And then later you evaluate your work and you say, now we are going to emphasize in the following areas in the 9-point plan so that we move forward. And now, because of got pressure from investors who are saying, no, we see you going, but we think these areas are a challenge. We say to you, we're giving you 14 confidence building plans. So there is no other plan than that one. And I don't remember the House, the National Assembly, or this NCOP discussing any plan called Gupta Plan or something. I only know that you have adopted and gave us a national development plan to go and implement, and there's nothing that the executive can implement that has not been approved by this House. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable Ntebe.
Not DM, I want to concentrate on two things in the main. On the fiscal part, we know that our revenue collection has taken a dip, and we are, according to the 14-point plan, we should be on the era of the fiscal consolidation. I think it's one of the things that we must consider. On the micro level, we know that we should be at the level of stabilizing the economy. Now you keep on referring to the DFIs. Can you please elaborate the socio-economic trajectory that we want to pursue as the country in terms of the DFIs? And we must probably be eloquent about the role that we don't want public expenditure to crowd out private investment. And what is the role of the DFIs in that regard? Thank you, Chair.
Deputy Minister.
We have got, thanks, Chair. We have got, if you look at your world outlook, you have got two economies that we normally refer to. The US economy and the Chinese economy now. And the Chinese economy came late in the picture. What is it that has made it unique, that it has come up, that has turned the tables? It was to ensure that when we are at a developmental state and others have already overtaken you, you need to ensure that every sector, every point where you have got strength, you must use it. So in that case, they use the state as a lever. So using the state-owned enterprises and also leverage it with your what? With your DFIs. Because your DFIs are the ones that are supposed to close the gap where the private sector cannot go. They are the ones where the private sector cannot say, we're not going to be able to invest in that direction. You will use your DFIs to be able to risk because you have got, and provided you have got a plan that is inbuilt to safeguard that risk are not taking it into that. So in this case, our IDCs, our DFIs, we use them in that way. We led them to go and invest where they will save us jobs. We led them to go where we feel that they must go and input so that we have an increase in jobs. That is why when you look at our statistics, you will realize that we have made an intervention in the textile industry and saved so many jobs and created others. We have intervened in your steel industry where we saved so many jobs, and Honorable Mtimunyo is coming from Mpumalanga. You will know that there's a company that was known as Highfeld. And it's only no one would have wanted to finance any person there. It's only the ITC that has done so. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Minister. We move on to question number 352. Put to the Minister of Economic Development by the Honorable Dikhale. I have been advised and instructed that the Honorable Makue is handling the question. Deputy Minister, question 352.
Thank you very much, Chair. In South Africa as well as globally, there is a growing recognition that social economy can and must play an important role in the economy. Now, the new growth path suggests that up to 260,000 new jobs could be created within this social economy. We also point out, we also pointed out that achieving jobs and other targets for the sector would require comprehensive government support, the development of a stronger networks and linkages within the social economy itself, as well as collaboration between government, unions, community investment initiative to create jobs in this sector. So the department has initiated a process towards developing a policy framework that will guide the development of South Africa's social economy, informed by both international and local evidence-based research. We are currently finalizing a social economy discussion document and expect that it will be ready by mid-November 2017, so that we can use it and go and meet with practitioners, experts, and other social economy stakeholders in order to solicit inputs toward the green paper on social economy for South Africa. It is envisaged that the draft green paper will be referred to Parliament in 2018, followed by a draft white paper and a draft policy on social economy to be submitted to Parliament in March 2020, with various national and provincial and regional consultations throughout the process. The department, in partnership with the Government of Flanders and the International Labour Relations, has signed a memorandum of understanding as part of a country's cooperation agreement to develop a consistent and coherent social economy policy framework for South Africa, informed by both international and local evidence-based research. The fundamental aim of this project and all our work on the social economy is to correctly identify the opportunities and challenges in the sector so that we can be able to craft policy that is nuanced, sustainable, and effective in supporting the sector's ability to grow, create jobs, and promote social and constitutional values in South Africa. Thanks, Guy.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable Mtimunye? No, Makue.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Now that we've been joined by our members of Parliament from the Finance and Appropriations Committee, we have to be very careful what we say when we look at our future plans. We are, however, in agreement that when we talk about the social economy, we are talking about the rich diversity of enterprises and organizations that are sharing common values. Now, all parties are not of the same size and do not have the same footprint. So we as the ruling party have to be mindful that we are not accused again of creating jobs for people who are members of our party. But I think that my question to you, Honorable Deputy Minister, would be in the light of the medium-term budget statement that was given to us yesterday on behalf of Cabinet, by the Minister of Finance. We recognize that we are experiencing serious fiscal constraints. My question then would be, has the Department of Economic Development given attention to where we are going to get the capital from to inject in the social economy? Thank you.
Deputy Minister.
Thanks, Chair. No, we are learning. What we are going to do in terms of putting the act, what we have now realized is that we're not actually going to create something that is not existing. What we're beginning to see is that it's something that is in existence that must be that is defined but that must be lifted into law. I just want to point out this example as I respond to this, is that on Saturday, I went to eThekwini, and when I went there, I was addressing 3,500 representatives of Stokvel clubs. And these Stokvel clubs, we actually thought that they are just stock fairs because they buy consumables. What we realize is that they deal with the money that we give in the grant for children and for everyone. And they say, they put it together and buy once in 1 year a grocery that will lift you up to the end of the year. And then the other one that we realize is that within them, you then have others who are street traders, who are using that platform also as street traders. And they negotiate deals, and when I was, they had negotiated a distributor to give them at a discounted price. So it's an economy that has gained its own traction that we need to be able to divine. Where is the money going? The money is already there, and part of the things that, of the monies that we're actually using, it might even call for a restructuring on how we deal with them. If you have got a group of people that have got 100 kids that are receiving grants, and they put it together in one, and they were saying to me, Chair, they want to create now a cooperative bank, so that when the money comes, they will have one bank, and it has got conditions and principles on how it must be used, so that individual parents must not abuse it. So you see, it's a development, it's an organic development of a policy that we believe that it's going to be an interesting one when it concludes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. I do not have another hand for any other supplementary. Oh, the Honorable Wana. Into the mic, please, ma'am.
Enkosi mhlala ngaphambili. Sekela mphathiswa. Nangicela nje mntakatata uqondo ba njenge Department yoqoqosho nenza kanjani ukulungiselela abantu mhlawumbe mandenza umzekelo aphelelwe emsebenzini. Then ke ikhona na iframework ethi xa ephelelwe emsebenzini uncediswa njani ubuyela back to economic stability kuloo ndawo akuyo. Ndenza umzekelo phaya Eastern Cape makesithi umuntu usuka apha ezimayini unikwe ipackage. Ithini ke ngoku into mhlawumbi noba ukwa-VW lapha besenza imoto abe nele package, kodwa ithini i-department ukumncedisa kule nto ebesele ene-empowerment kuyo uba angene abe kwiqoqosho laseMzantsi Afrika ukugwema le nto ingaka yomsebenzi ongekhoyo. Enkosi Sekela Mphathiswa.
Deputy Minister.
Chair, there are various initiatives that are conducted, and small business in most cases focus mostly on that in terms of in the form of cooperative and small businesses that are interested in entering the market. But what we do ourselves as the economic development to ensure that we don't lose that is that we interact with provinces and look at the activities that are happening at that level, even to a level where we interact directly at the municipal level, where they are interacting with the entry into the potential entry into the economy. And we provide, through working together with small business and their institutions like CEDA and so on, support that allow them to understand on how to participate in that. And also even in terms of the choice of where you're supposed to participate, you might want to choose a choice where you are going to fall off and are not going to be able to have support. It might be that your approach might need to go the route of the social economy, the cooperatives, and the stokvels, so that you have got support of others in order to be able to move forward. But those that are able to enter into the mainstream will then leverage your ITC, your CFAs, to be able to assist in that. But empowering people who are entering is not an easy, and one time you actually assisted me with a view of looking at the question of establishing vendors. And it's something that is very critical that we will actually look at. I know that Minister Zulu has got some framework that are beginning to look at that kind of a direction. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is there any other member? None. We proceed to question number 340. It is put by the Honorable Magwebu to the Minister of Economic Development. Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Chair. The department and its entities does offer bursary schemes. And it ranges between offering for its employees and those that are outside. All of them offers their own employees as well. But the IDC and ITEC is also offering to those that are coming from outside, addressing areas of skill shortages. And for example, IDC on an annual basis grant about 70 new bursaries to academic deserving students. And the total number of students that are supported in this is around 244 annually when it's brought together. Thanks.
Honorable Magwebu.
Ngosihlalo ndiyabulela kakhulu. Deputy Minister, I heard your response. You're talking about 70 plus scholarships, bursaries you're running. I'm sure you agree that that is not sufficient, given the, the immense, poverty and the challenges of financing education in this day and age of our children. Having said that, here is my question. Would you commit today that in your department, you will make sure that these performance bonuses that are being paid at a huge amount for, for the top heavy structures we have in the ruling party government, that money will be used and be channeled to be used for our students so that there could be more bursaries available as your contribution, amongst many other institutions? What is your take, Minister? Thank you, Hlalo Ndabulel.
Deputy Minister.
When coming to fiscal discipline, I think the Minister of Finance has outlined what is it that we must do, all of us, not pointing out where. He has outlined to us that we are focusing more on what is it that we can do out of the compensation money. But in terms of whether I could be able to say organization so and so, stop that structure, use the other one, I can only say that within the Department of EDD is something that we pay attention to. And we look at what is it that, and emphasize that when we do our structures, they must link the job to the person and the compensation. So the competence and the compensation must talk together. Even our institution, whether it's ITC or Competition Commission, that is the practice that we use. In terms of the amounts that are required, these are interventions by these institutions. And we must remember that we have got a Human Resource Development Council where private sector, NGOs, and other organizations are involved in that. So the totality of the contribution of government contribution, we'll then find it in the report of the Human Resource Development Council that is led by the Deputy President and is stationed in the Department of Higher Education. So if we want to have a bigger picture of what is the impact, we actually have it even in terms of the contributions of the different departments.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Honorable Dlamini.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Skills development to ensure economic growth is not only a government responsibility. Private sector as well has got a responsibility to do so. Maybe following to what the Honorable Magwebu was saying, the possibility of reducing the huge salaries of the CEOs, channel that money to bursaries. What is business doing in order to ensure skills development in the country?
Honorable Dlamini, please take your seat. Deputy Minister.
Chair, thank you very much. I'll go back to the same, to say that we have got a Human Resource Development Council that coordinate the contribution of us all from the private sector and the public sector, and any other organization in between that might want to do that. So there is contributions that are done at that level. And there's also some interventions that are done at an individual site on each one. But as to the question, the issues around whether we can take money from somebody who is paid and do something else, it's a policy debate that probably belongs to the House. So it's something that we can look at. But for us, we agree with you, equal pay for equal work. People should be paid according to their competencies and what they produce. So that principle must apply. And the gap between the high earning and the lower earning, we agree with you that all of us in different organizations, whether it's in government or in private sector, we need to look at that gap that it closes up. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable Mfundisi Mthethwa. Mfundisi Qhubeka.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honorable Deputy Minister, the department and its entities has offered bursaries and scholarship to enhance skills, also to provide education. Can you provide statistics for the young people who benefited on this program? Thank you.
Deputy Minister, if you can offhand provide us statistical material, that's up to you. But please remember, if you are wrong, then this House will say you have misled it. Be very careful with how you answer this one.
No, Chair, I just wanted to indicate that we do keep statistics. When we double check, when we check in our institutions and when we have reports, we do check where are they allocated. At the current moment, I will not be able to have who are in which level and which are old or women, but I can just point out in the 244 that we have a spread of them in the different sectors. 86 in engineering, 68 in accounting, 33 in medicine, 17 in agriculture, 10 in computer and science, just to take the higher one to show. And when you look at them, you can see that they speak to the areas of skills needs. So we do have to keep that, and it also indicates who is in the first year, and the fourth year, and the fifth year, and who is doing a junior degree, a diploma, or a doctorate. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Honorable members, we go to question number 333. It was put by Honorable Mtimunye. Deputy Minister. Honorable Mukwili, you can converse, we just don't want to hear. It must not disturb us with the business, but you can converse. Honorable Mukwili, please, you are free to converse, but please don't disturb the business of the House. Deputy Minister.
Thanks very much, Chair. Honorable Mukwili promised me that this time when I come, she's not going to do that. But I see she continues according to our previous contract. Okay. The IDC and the NEF are developmental institutions with a common approach in advancing finance to enterprises. There are synergies between the two DFIs, especially around promotion of economic empowerment of historical disadvantaged communities or persons, the development of small and medium enterprises, cooperatives, and facilitating the creation of employment, especially in underdeveloped regions. So this measure, it is envisaged that the two entities will be able to increase opportunities for better collaboration and reduce duplication and overlaps in specific areas. And it must be treated as part of the processes that we have embarked on to consolidate SOEs and DFIs. So in this case on the DFIs, we have already started with CIFA when we said for CIFA to be able to be sustainable and to be able to leverage further resources from a balance sheet of a stronger organization, it's better when it is a subsidiary of IDC, and it is doing well now. So NEF focus on services in most cases, while IDC in manufacturing. But the key task of the NEF was on empowerment. So whatever it does, the key thing is empowerment. While in IDC, empowerment is part of the rest of the other things that they must do. So in this case, NEF has been doing a lot of work and there's a lot of demand on it. So you will be looking at the possibility of it being given more muscle to be able to do that. And there are two options to do it. You recapitalize, or you can give it something that will give it that leverage. So in this case, we have taken a route of making EF to be a subsidiary of IDC so that it can leverage on the balance sheet of the IDC. So if it needs additional money in between and it has run out of money, it can be able to take that money that probably the IDC can be able, the board can be able to say, we are giving you an extra amount of this to be able to carry out your mandate, rather than waiting for a long period to negotiate with Treasury for an additional resources. That's what we're looking at. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable Mtimunya? Your mic is not on. Mic. It is now on.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. The Minister, you wouldn't mind sharing with us the details of the genesis of what underpins this measure. If you wouldn't mind, can I respectfully submit that you, with your permission, Chair, that we will receive such details in writing, please?
Deputy Minister?
Thank you very much, Chair. We have already indicated that it's within the realm of the task that you have given us as the legislature to look at whether we cannot consolidate our SOEs and our DFIs. So in this case, I have indicated that part of the task of the NEF, because if you look at their accounting mechanisms and all this, you can't say one of them has got a problem. They're actually stronger. But what we need, what NEF is beginning to run out to is the fact that there's more demand on the empowerment side on what they should be doing. So sometimes to a level where even its resources get depleted. So if we have it within the IDC, that decision can actually be taken with the board and they just clear it off. But what I can just add on that is the governance part that people are worried of. That if you take NEF and there's an authority, and IDC has got an authority, what do you want to do with that? The principle that we're following is the same one that we have done with CIFA, that the authority that deals with the subsidiary will still have an influence in terms of the definition of policy in relation to the mandate that has been given there. So that's how it has been structured. Our core driver was to ensure that there's effective implementation of the mandate of empowering. And the strength that you have seen was in the IDC balance sheet.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. The Honorable Ntebe.
DM, there are two things involved. The NEF and the IDC are having focal responsibility. NEF was, in particular, an empowerment of blacks, broad-based economic empowerment. And IDC is looking into market penetration and the creation of other industries that are not particularly existing, but also penetration into the continent broadly. If we merge the two, and through your response you said there's adequate experience that they are both functioning together. But if we merge the two, are we not probably defeating the focal point that the two responsible agencies have? So that fiduciary responsibility vis-a-vis good governance is not tampered with. Thank you, Chair.
Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Chair. Companies and subsidiaries do happen in practice in our, and it doesn't take away the responsibility of a board that is of a subsidiary in terms of its fiduciary responsibility and its accountability to the authority. And we have seen that experience happening with CIFA. You have seen it working. And we don't believe that it is going to create that kind of a challenge. The only thing that the overall board of IDC will be looking at is the overarching governance issues in it, and also on how and fund that they have actually dispensed into the NEF. And also just to point out that it's important that this IDC, which is an institution of our own that we've inherited, has got so many years in operation, which is something that we should not miss out in leveraging just on that to be able to assist the other ones. Thank you.
The Honorable Mutara.
Thank you, Chair. Deputy Minister, with the merger of the IDC and the NEF, or let me start by saying you have found a situation where some companies can go to the NEF and the IDC and be assisted by both. What will be the situation now with the merger? Will they only be able to source funding from one entity or the main entity as well as its subsidiaries? Thanks.
Let me say, currently, when a company or when an individual wants assistance from our DFIs and doesn't know the difference, and you put in an application to IDC, IDC is able to say, this one, we think the people that have got a strength is CIFA. And sometimes also CIFA, when they receive the application and they see that this one belongs there, it is referred appropriately into the right basis. So we believe that the same principle will be applying with the NEF and the IDC, where the consolidated empowerment initiative will actually be led by NEF, and with even if it also means the certain amount that they're actually having in the certain program that are run by the IDC. So we leverage that experience and the strength of the NEF to also influence IDC in terms of empowerment program.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. The Honorable Magwe.
Ngosihlalo bekekileyo ndiyabulela. Deputy Minister, you talked in your response about downsizing and cutting costs, and I'm sure we welcome that. In fact, the merger between the two institutions or entities is long overdue. Having said that, my question is, can we take this, cutting of cost and downsizing a notch up and look at the government departments and downsize them? We've got about more than 30, 40 government departments. We can do with 11 or 12. Now, what is your comment to that? We're taking the downsizing now, we're talking economics. What is your response, Minister?
Deputy Minister, your competence is to confine yourself to entities under your department, not under the ministries. You are not competent to deal with that one. You can respond to the part that you can deal with.
No, I can only offer.
Just a view.
I can offer you a view based on my skills and what I have studied. Organizational designs, whether the spread is so wide or closer, it depends on the level of development in that environment where they are operating in, or the situation where they are. In a situation where you haven't yet consolidated, you spread it so that you must deal critically with issues that might be falling by the wayside. And as you continue, you start fusing them together because you have already defined what they are, and then you are able to take it forward. And I believe in this IDC, I think the case in point is this what we're doing here with the IDC and NEF and CIFA, where they've been operating together on a site, and they've been having a lot of institutions there. You consolidate them, and they are like consolidated in one, because you understand clearly what each area requires. So that's what you do in organization. So I don't know if South Africa has reached which stage has actually reached. So probably when we have defined it together, me and you will be able to advise our country.
Deputy Minister, thank you very much. That exhausts your set of questions for today, and we thank you very much. Honorable members, we welcome the Deputy Minister for Labour and immediately ask him to take question number 337. It was put by the Honorable Khai.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I thought you were going to say, honorable members, we've run out of time.
We decided to cluster so that members have ample time to ask the questions.
Thank you. Now, the basis of the Auditor General's adverse opinion was on investments of the UIF funds in the Public Investment Corporation, that is the PIC. The value of the investments in the annual, reflecting in the annual financial statements of 135 billion, 667 million, and 993,000 rand did not tally with the amounts in the supporting documents. Additionally, significant investments in subsidiaries and associates were not consolidated and equity was not accounted for. This, though, does not mean that the money is not there, but it is merely a new accounting standard that was not adhered to by the fund. And this is being corrected according to the advice of the Auditor General going forward. Now, regarding the question as to why has this happened, especially in the 2016-2017 financial year, firstly, it is because it was the first time that the Auditor General had raised the matter as an audit query. It has never been an audit query in the past. Now, regarding the question whether accounting systems are synchronized, those of the UIF and the PIC, the accounting systems between the UIF and the PIC are currently not synchronized. However, regular meetings between the two entities are being held to address the systems challenge. As an interim measure, the UIF is now preparing quarterly certificates of balances instead of only relying on annual certificates. This will mitigate against the risk of incorrect certificates of balances at the end of the year. Lastly, the fund has developed a management action plan that addresses the audit findings. The progress report on the Management Action Plan is presented to the governance structures on a quarterly basis to track implementation. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. The Honorable Khai.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable Deputy Minister. I will accept the explanation on my question. All that I will ask Honorable Deputy Minister whether there is any guarantee that in the next annual report of 2017-2018, we won't find an audit query on these particular issues that I've raised. Thank you.
The Deputy Minister.
At the risk of binding myself on matters that are also reliant on other people, I think we are in a position as a department to give that assurance that this problem having been identified, we should be in a position to ensure that it doesn't arise again when next we have to account to the NCOP.
The Honorable Magwebu.
Nkosi sihlalo ndiyabulela kakhulu ngexesha lakho. Deputy Minister, mhlekazi omhle, cela nje ukubuza. You know, this is a big problem, I'm sure, the regression of audit outcomes in the UIF. And in your response, sir, you have indicated that this has been caused by failure to adhere to accounting standards by officials in that department. Now, surely there has to be consequences, isn't it, sir? Now, I would want to know from you, what is it that the ministry has done to deal with those that failed to ensure that accounting standards were observed? Because there has to be consequence management, isn't it? Thank you, sir. Your response, please.
Deputy Minister. Deputy Minister, please proceed.
Chairperson, thank you very much. I thought I had indicated in the main response that previously this has not been a requirement leading to an audit query. Now that it has been established that it is an audit query, then an undertaking is being made that the directives of the Auditor General will be adhered to and respected.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Is there any other hand on this question? None? Deputy Minister, we proceed to a question number 346 by the Honorable Magwebu. Three 346.
346, which one? Oh, I'm sorry, Chairperson. 346. Wait. Sorry. Oh, sorry. It was covered by the other papers. There are so many questions. The question by Mr. Magwebu relates to the matter of labor inspectors. The Department of Labor has 1,392 labor inspectors. And a sub-question to that one relates to the effectiveness of the number of labor inspectors that we have. The department does not have sufficient labor inspectors to ensure that enforcement services are effective. In terms of the international best practice, the department is 835 inspectors below the required international standard for the economy of our size. The inspector-to-worker ratio for developing economies is one inspector for 15,000 economically active for an economically active population. According to statistics, South Africa's recent statistics, the economically active population is 22,277,000 people. Therefore, if one considers the ILO recommended ratio and the number of the economically active population in the Republic, the inspector-worker ratio required by South Africa is one labor inspector per 16,000 workers. It is for these reasons that it remains a challenge for the department in terms of ensuring that inspections and enforcement services are effective and detection of issues of non-compliance done timeously. In order for the department to meet its obligations, in terms of this matter, finding additional resources to engage the shortfall in the numbers of inspectors remains key. We are nonetheless working on this matter in terms of trying to do more with little. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Honorable Magwebu.
Sir, now that you have considered that there is a serious shortfall, therefore it means we have got a serious challenge. You've called it a challenge, but I want to call it as a serious challenge. You know, there's an incident in Versasbrom in Free State where, you know, it was that really pained all of us as South Africans. And it's due to the failure of the department to provide these inspectors. This matter could have been avoided where just issues of child labor. Now, here is the question, sir. You said you've got a plan, you need resources. Now, can you commit to say by the end of this financial year, you would have a clear plan and you'll be able to report back to this House and tell us what is that plan? Thank you.
Deputy Minister.
Chairperson, I'm not in a position to give that kind of commitment because I have already indicated that we have a shortage of inspectors. And I imagine all members of parliament are aware that we don't have enough money to be able to hire those inspectors. And as a result, we rely on everybody, especially public representatives who become aware of the violation of the labor laws, to come forward, inform the department. In that way, therefore, we'll be in a position to act on any violations that have been brought to our attention. Otherwise, with the little number that we have of inspectors, we do what we can do, which is to conduct the necessary inspections on our own volition, but also in response to complaints that have been brought to our attention.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. The Honorable Mukwili. Honorable Nzimande, you have been noted.
Ke a leboga modulasetulo, ke a leboga motlatsa minister. Potso ya ka ke gore ra go utlwa ra gore wa re di inspector tse di leng mo lefapheng ga di enough mo e leng gore di ka kgona go dira tiro ya bone ka botsetseleko. Ke batla go checka le wena motlatsa ministera gore a di inspectors tsa gago di atle di etele mafelo a di domestic workers di bereka mo ona segolo bogolo ko mafelong a e leng gore go nna baeteledipele ba setšhaba jaaka badiredi ba palamente kgotsa maloko a palamente go bona di-conditions tse badiredi ba rona ba nnang mo go tsona. Ga go le jalo kgotsa go se jalo, ke eng se lefapha le tlo se dirang go netefatsa gore rona jaaka maloko a palamente le maloko a dipuso selegae re tshwara badiredi magae a rona sentle? Ke a leboga.
Deputy Minister, did you get the question?
I think I did, Chairperson. The labor inspectors, zihlola zonke indawo ezinabasebenzi, including abantu abazi domestic workers. Regarding members of parliament and legislatures, I think we've just indicated that we have a shortage of labor inspectors. And members of parliament and legislatures, being the very people who have made these laws, would expect them to listen to their conscience and do their civic duty, which is to comply with the relevant legislation, making it unnecessary for labor inspectors, a few as they are, to be investigating them. But nonetheless, there is no workplace that is exempt from being investigated. And as I said, if there is any indication that there's a need for the employers who happen to be members of parliament to be investigated, then we will take that up.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. The Honorable Ntebe.
No, Chair. Minister, DM, we were in Bloemfontein when the unfortunate situation of the usage of very young persons was detected. But we were comforted by a multifaceted approach by the department and all others, that because until we understand that, and you are quite eloquent, but probably you need to go a bit further in being explicit about the nature and the content of the inspectors that you showed, because occupational health specialists are not just your ordinary inspectors. And there's a lack or shortage of warm body capital in your department to respond to such. But do you plan as the department to fund, whether in a form of bursaries or in a form of any other measure in place, so that you develop such warm body capital that you so need, so that when inspectorate, like you said, the inspector worker ratio is just too low, and for us to be able to up it up, we need to be able to match it in terms of the international standard. Is there any intention from the department to do that?
Deputy Minister.
Well, I sound as if I'm being defensive and hiding behind the shortage of resources, because the skills that are possessed by labor inspectors dealing with OSH-related incidents is a highly specialized kind of skill. And a number of other sectors are in need of this. And our salaries tend not to be competitive enough for us to be able to retain them. But recently I have been informed by the Inspector General that they are considering either opening a school for the training of inspectors, especially the specialized ones, or getting some kind of an understanding with the existing colleges in order for this kind of a skill to be acquired by the department, so that we are in a position to attend to these kinds of incidents.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. The Honorable Nzimande.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. To the Deputy Minister, in the light of your question, noting the fact that you're saying there's shortages on the numbers of the inspectors, I would like to ask whether in such difficult sectors, do you have a breakdown and specific deployment? In particular, a reference is in the agricultural sector, the farms, where there's a lot of exploitation, and we see that in the numbers of murders and tensions between farm owners and the workers in the farm. So, is there in trying to mitigate these shortages? Is the department categorizing the inspectors and therefore deploy them in specific sectors, or what is the situation in that regard? Thank you, Chairperson.
Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Chairperson. Naturally, we do categorize the areas of operation of these inspectors. And as the Department of Labor, we are particularly sensitive to the plight of the vulnerable workers, especially the farm workers, who are not even properly organized in terms of unions. And therefore, it is in that sector specifically that we hold regular blitz inspection exercises, so that we mitigate the condition that they find themselves in, as I say, also because they are not, they do not belong to unions like other workers are.
Honorable members, we move on. I have had 4 supplementaries. We move on to question number 351. It was put by the Honorable Ngwenya. Arrangements have been made for Honorable Mukwili to take care of that question. Question number 351, Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Chairperson, once again. Indeed, the Department of Labor strives to ensure that it carries its work guided by the key tenets of our mission statement. In order to ensure that workers are protected from any human rights abuses, we use various pieces of labor legislation at our disposal to achieve this objective. The foundation of all our legislation is the protection of workers in general and vulnerable workers in particular against any form of labor-related human rights abuses and as defined in our Constitution. The Department of Labor's role in the eviction of workers from the farms is limited to the industrial relations dimension. In other words, the evictions in themselves are regulated by laws that fall outside our remit, but the Departments of Rural Development and Land Reform and Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries are in a position to deal with those. We are, as a department, responsible for setting minimum working conditions, including minimum wages for the sector through ministerial wage determinations. We, however, do work together in dealing with these issues with the other departments. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Honorable Mukwele.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much, Deputy Minister. Ke lebogela gore ebe lona le mafapha a leng maleba go dira go netefatsa gore batho ba rona ga ba tlhokofadiwe ke maburu a nnang mo dipolaseng le kgone gore le ba thuse. Mme potso ya ka motlatsa ministera ke gore go gantsi gore lebaka legolo la gore batho ebe ba ntshiwa mo dipolaseng ke maburu a senang dipelo e diriwa ke gore ebe go na le thefosanyo ya mafatshe kgotsa thekiso ya mafatshe. Ka jalo batho ba rona be ba iphitlhela ba le mo maemong a gore ga gona ko ba yang kwa teng. Yaanong ke batla go netefatsa le wena motlatsa ministera gore jaaka o se o kaile gore le a kopana a go kile ga nna le nako e leng gore ga le kopane le mafapha a megang mo kgannye ebe le atlhatlha kgang ya gore lefatshe le tshwantse le boele ko beng ba lona ntle le tuelelo ga ile gore le kile la akantshana jalo le emefa kae ka ntlha e gore ko bofelong e be le gore bantsho ba rona bo abuti le bo ausi ba rona ba kgona go boloketsega ka gore ga gona sepe se sengwe se se tlo dirang gore ba boloketsege ntleng le gore ba kgone go kry-a lefatshe le leng gore le tsere mo bone ka bogodu. Ke a leboga.
Deputy Minister.
Chairperson, the Minister of Rural Development and Land Reform has advised me that, in fact, this question has been raised with him previously, and he has answered it. But obviously, we are a constitutional state. We are governed by the rule of law, and therefore, any redress that has to be done in respect of those who were deprived of their rights previously has to be done in accordance with the relevant legislation in the Constitution. That is the basis on which we conduct our interaction when we talk about the plight of the farm workers on other people's land. Of course, it's important that we should strive, all of us, to a day when each citizen is living on his own piece of land and not having to rely for his or her own living and sustenance on somebody else's piece of land. That is a responsibility that we all have to strive for.
Honorable Dlamini.
Angibonge kakhulu sihlalo. Ngisho nje ukuthi siyabonga Deputy Minister siyeva ukuthi niyashoda ngama inspectors. During the provincial week, eMpumalanga bezivakashele emaplazini aseMiddelburg. Bantu bakithi bayahlupheka kakhulu hayi kancane. Basaphila njengalesikhathi se-apartheid, basagijinyiswa ngetimoto, ngetibhamu, bantu abadzala. Abafana abancane babelungu. It's painful. And it looks like it's a strategy that when a new farmer buys a farm, labantu bebekhona before, abaxoshe, bavalela amanti, they don't even allow them to walk within the farm. They find themselves trapped in that small place where they are. Umbuto wami ke uthi, Deputy Minister, tikhona indlela leni lisebenzisako ukuthi labantu bavikeleke uma ngabe kunomfama lomusha lothenga liplazi bangafiki bahlukunyetwe ngilaba labasha. Akusibo bonke ke, of course, because we're told that some of the farmers around the area, they do assist them even with water. But there are those particular farmers who are still racist. What are the plans between yourselves and Department of Rural Development and Agriculture?
Deputy Minister.
Clearly, it could have assisted me a lot if I had been aware that I would be responding to questions pertaining more to the question of land reform and rural development. I am only limited to confirming that indeed we do speak to each other as the departments, because we have a common constituency, us looking after the labor rights of the workers working on the farms, and the Department of Rural Development and Land Reform looking into the question of the security of tenure for those workers. Indeed, the problem of racism is an abiding one. And we, I think, generally had hoped that with the new constitutional dispensation, which is about the equal treatment of all human beings, by other human beings especially, would be adopted by everybody. But it does seem as if we still have a great deal of political work to do to ensure that everybody, regardless of color, recognizes another human being as a human being. But as I say, our responsibility specifically is to ensure that the rights of workers as employees, as farm workers as employees, are not violated by the fact that there has been a change in ownership. But every contract depends on the provisions that have been agreed to by the employer and the employee. I am not in a position at this stage, Chairperson, to talk about what happens when a farmer who had employed people on his farm decides to sell the farm to another owner as to what the arrangements are supposed to be. But one would expect that the contract that one has, if it had to do with the operations in the farm, then that contract also ought to be taken over by the new one. But then again, those are legalities that would have to be considered on a case-by-case basis. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. The Honorable Magwevu.
Deputy Minister, I just want to, maybe I should say this. Illegal evictions in farms and anywhere else in the world, they're not only unlawful, but they are immoral. And I agree with you in that. But having said that, I wanted to share this example, the relationship between the workers and the farm and the farm workers and the farm owner, where they've worked together. And there's a beautiful housing project, I think it's here in Paarl. I'm sure you're aware of that. Now, I want to establish from you, is your department to ensure that the tensions between the farm workers and the farm owners, will your department consider taking those examples and as inspectors go to those farms to try to build relationships and so that they could, have their own homes and be given their dignity using that model? Thank you.
Deputy Minister.
I can only convey that advice and view to the relevant department, Department of Rural Development and Land Reform, because that really is their remit. But then, as I say, we work closely together, and there's nothing wrong in us undertaking an inspection or a visit to that particular project, so that we can learn from it and spread it, because indeed I believe that it should be in a position to contribute to the alleviation of the plight of workers who live on other people's land because they are working for that particular person. When the employment relationship comes to an end, then people become destitute. I think indeed there's a need for more concerted action on the part of the relevant departments to work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. The Honorable Shabangu.
Nna ke nke sebaka sa hore ke lebohe motsamaisi wa mosebetsi. E tla be le hore ha ke a representa Free State ha nke se bue ka taba ena. Hobane ho bonahala hore ditaba tsena tse mpe kaofela di etsahala Free State. Jwalo ka ha di buitse buileng pele ho nna se di hlalositse hore e itse ha re le moo ra thola bana ba sebediswa hampe, ba jeswa dinama tse bodileng, ditau di ja nama e fresh. Me potso ya ka ko hore le mane Lawn Min transport in Harrismith, batho ba teng ba ile ba complaina hore ha di working conditions tsa mono di very conducive. Ha ba patalo ho ya ka ditumellwana. Labor agreement ha e etsahale. Me potso ya ka ko hore, when are you going to invade Free State? I understand that you've got few labor practitioners, but with the help of the police, because these things are happening in Free State, they take farmers, young boys and girls from Northwest and even in Cape Town, ba sebedisa mane Free State. Me ka baka la invasion ya parliament ha ne ile mo liburu leno le ile la kwallo, but after hore ho bitswe
ya fela ntate nako o saletswe ke metsotswana e meraro o qetile potso o e beile o itse potso o ile wa e beya o itse when are they invading the Free State? Deputy Minister.
If the question indeed, Chairperson, is that when is the department going to go and conduct inspections in the Free State, we are present in all the provinces, including the Free State. And we do conduct inspections, as I said before, on our own volition, but also on invitation by those who are aware of the atrocities that are being committed against the vulnerable and poor workers. And of course, anyone, especially public representatives, who's aware of the violation of the law, like human trafficking and those kinds of things, the employment of people, children who are not supposed to be in employment, have a responsibility to report those activities to the relevant law enforcement agencies.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. We move on to the next question. It is question 336. It was posed by Honorable Mtimunye. Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, once again. All our dispute resolution machinery have been mobilized to expedite the resolution of the Umbaba estate workers dispute. The CCMA is leading our efforts to find a solution to the dispute. We are acutely aware and share the concern that the matter has been going on for too long without a resolution in sight. This is due to various factors, some of which are beyond our control as the Department of Labor. Firstly, the workers of Umbaba Estate are represented by their trade union, FAU, on this matter, and as such, the union has the final say on how they want to pursue the dispute. It is worth noting that the workers' union appointed the services of a law firm to represent workers on this matter, and as such, any intervention by the Department of Labor has to take the cue from the union leadership and its attorneys. This has complicated the dispute, and the delays in finding closure have a lot to do with how the union leadership and its attorneys choose to pursue the matter. Secondly, the employer is using every opportunity in the labor law to filibuster and or delay the conclusion of the matter through reviews and appeals. This is not helped by the fact that the union also changes its attorneys who deal with this matter from time to time. The internal tensions within their union have also added to the complications and delays in resolving this matter. Current status of the dispute: to demonstrate the importance of Umbaba Estate case, it was redlined as a priority by the CCMA, and as such, it is now handled through the Office of the National Director of the CCMA. The matter has gone through various CCMA dispute resolving mechanisms, including conciliation arbitration tool, a precursor to a conventional arbitration process. But unfortunately, the union and the employer have failed to find a solution. A conventional arbitration as a logical step was then set up by the CCMA. Both the employer and the union lawyers keep asking for more time to prepare for the case, and in some instances, they would request more time to explore the possibilities of finding a solution on their own. In these instances, the CCMA commissioners would allow the parties time to prepare and or to seek a resolution on their own. Legal representatives agreed to follow the pre-arbitration route as again a precursor to full-on arbitration. However, the parties have as yet not signed their commitment to the pre-arbitration exercise. The trouble is that the CCMA does not have the powers to dictate to the parties what they should do. It is only the parties that must indicate which route they want to follow. On 27 September 2017, a ruling was issued to the effect that parties need to sign the pre-arbitration minute, but to date, this has not been actioned by the parties. On the way forward, the Office of the Ministry will initiate discussions with the union involved with a view to find ways of how to expedite the finalization of this matter. At all times, bearing in mind the fact that the CCMA is the body that is tasked by law to deal with such matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. The Honorable Mtimunye.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. In the midst of this legal gymnastics, Deputy Minister, two parties are benefiting here out of the three. The one is the employer, because production has not stopped, it continues. And the worker is suffering because he's not earning the salary. And under the suffering of the worker, the lawyers of the union keep buying time, and you know what it means in the legal practice to buy time. It means more money. And there's one victim of circumstance here, is the worker. And while the worker is suffering, unfortunately, my friend Honorable Harting is enjoying romance through social media on his phone here. He's probably a shareholder at Umbaba. But Minister, is there a mechanism to speed up?
Honorable Mtimunye, please take your seat. Honorable Harting, you are on your feet. Order. Honorable Harting, you are on your feet.
I think this is outrageous. I think the member should withdraw.
I agree with Honorable Hatting. Honorable Hatting, Honorable Mtimunye, you are saying he is having a romantic whatever on the phone. I think that is uncalled for. Please withdraw and proceed.
I withdraw, Chair.
Please proceed. Please know that you have 51 seconds left.
Is there a mechanism, Deputy Minister, we can find to speed up these cases so that these unnecessary delays are not experienced in many other cases of the similar nature?
Honorable Deputy Minister.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, once again. Well, unfortunately, matters that are before tribunals have to be conducted in accordance with the rules of procedure that have been adopted by the relevant bodies. Now, if a matter then is being handled by attorneys before a competent tribunal, there's very little that we can do, except perhaps because, for instance, informally, it has been indicated that the union that is representing the workers is running out of funds because, as you said, many of its members are not in employment because of this dispute. Therefore, when we interact with the union, we might maybe find a way of getting lawyers that would be paid maybe by Legal Aid South Africa. But that is just about what I can think of now. But as I said, the matter is before a proper tribunal, the CCMA, and the workers and the employer are represented by their attorneys. And therefore, as I say, there's very little room for us as the department to do anything more, except maybe when we are getting a briefing as to what progress is taking place, we can then share whatever views we have, like as I have indicated, if there's a shortage of money, because sometimes that is the reason for the delays, then we can look at what the state can do, like in the form of the Legal Aid South Africa.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. The Honorable Mukwili.
My surname is Mukwili. Don't colonize my surname, it's Mukwili. Deputy Minister, I think the issue of Mbaba is the same as the Sun City matter where employees were exploited by management and they were exploited by the Gupta family during their wedding celebration that was held in that institution. Now, Deputy Minister, there were cases that were brought before both the Labor Department and Labor Court, if my memory serves me well. I want to check whether those type of cases where you find management using their powers and their racial influence into exploiting our workers. What is it that the department is doing to safeguard? We know that there are limitations in terms of where and how and when must you intervene as a department, but I assume that there is something as a department that you can do for workers to be safe and for them to feel that government is caring for them, especially those ones that can't, that doesn't have those resources to take their matters into other level in terms of legal representatives and such. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Chairperson. What happens is this, that when an allegation of a violation of labor rights is reported to the department. Labor inspectors contact the relevant workplace, either by phone first or by going directly to the workplace. And then, having conducted their inspection, they then inform the employer that the kind of violation of the provisions of the law that has been established. And then they are given notices as to by when they should rectify whatever it is that is wrong. Then if the employer fails to comply, then the matter is taken to the CCMA, and the CCMA will try to do conciliation and then arbitration, and if all of those efforts fail, then the matter is taken to the labor court. Obviously, in instances where the employers do not have the funds to hire their own lawyers, then Legal Aid South Africa is there to ensure that that happens. This happens regardless of who the violator of the laws is, regardless of whether it's a wedding or it's not a wedding or any other kind of activity, regardless of who the person involved is, as long as an employer having employed a worker. So that is what we do.
The Honorable Mhlanga.
No, thank you, Chair. Chair, let's also welcome the response by the Deputy Minister. On the farm in question, there's do acknowledge the response that you are giving us, but I just want to make certainty. Is the department not having any arrangement in terms of measures to cap the accidents keeping on occurring in the farms? Because most of these people are being dismissed in the farm by joining unions, of which the chapter 2 of your Bill of Rights allows any workforce to join any union that they want. And in terms of your Labour Regulation Act, they are permitted to join any labor they want. Now, I want to know, in terms of the department, what measures do you have to cap this scenario? Because it carries on occurring in most of these farms in the country. Thank you.
Deputy Minister.
Chairperson, I think this situation is not dissimilar to that facing the police. People commit crime on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, and even more frequently than that. And yet they know that there are laws in terms of which they should be abiding. We can only, as I kept saying, do what we do, inspect the workplaces, especially when we know that there are cries out there that specific sectors and specific geographical areas are increasingly violating labor legislation. We send out our labor inspectors and do what is necessary. And as I say, we can only appeal once again to public representatives who are aware of what is happening on the ground, because they have constituencies, to let us know and work with us, and as well as all other law enforcement agencies, to ensure that everybody respects the laws of the land and the rights of others.
You said the Honorable Ntebe.
DM, thank you. You keep on referring to your limitation in terms of the provisions of a piece of legislation. To my recollection, I know that your department and our labor laws in this country are one of those that are quite affording job security for the masses of our people. Your mandate is to make sure that you create an environment conducive for that, but also the maintenance of industrial peace. Now that you are raising that there are limitations, would you consider keeping the limitations by bringing a piece of legislation to amend so that we close such? The crafting of the labor laws in our country anticipated that we should be able to shift labor issues from the law process, because litigation inherently it takes long. And that's why you have your condonation and your arbitration part separate from the law process, so that you assist and you cap all the issues that are. So Honorable Mtemunye was eloquent to say in the midst of all this, sharing of money and claiming and all that, workers are suffering. So would you consider that the limitation would be kept by a piece of legislation for amendment? Thanks.
Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Chairperson. Well, indeed, the establishment of a body like the CCMA was intended to limit the amount of time that is spent in litigation. But unfortunately, at the same time, the same constitution allows people to have legal representation whenever their rights are being, whenever there is a dispute regarding whether or not their rights have been violated or not. So we are not in a position, therefore, to ban lawyers, I imagine, from the processes of the CCMA. If, for instance, because the CCMA commissioners are themselves lawyers, so they are supposed to know what the law entails. But once you have one party represented by a lawyer of his or her own, then it's common sense that the other side must have his or her own lawyer as well. So I'm not sure, therefore, that we would be in a position to amend the law to such an extent that we say no lawyers must be allowed. Perhaps except if we were in our traditional course, that is where we can ban them. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Honorable members, we move to our last question of the day. That is question number 347. It was put to the Minister of Labour by the Honorable Magwebu.
Thank you, Chairperson, once again. The regulation of pensions and provident funds resides in the remit of National Treasury through the Financial Services Board. Our role in assisting workers to access unclaimed pension and provident fund benefits takes the cue from the Financial Services Board and to some extent the programs led by the Department of Mineral Resources. We are an active participant in the interdepartmental task team chaired by the Department of Mineral Resources, which deals with these matters. The Chamber of Mines is also represented in the task team as a stakeholder and plays a significant role in assisting all the departments involved in addressing the challenge of payouts. The Department of Labor is working with the Department of Mineral Resources to expedite the efforts to trace the beneficiaries of unclaimed benefits. Recently, the Department of Labor, in partnership with the Department of Mineral Resources and Health, held a mbizo in Pongolo, specifically for ex-mine workers, in order to assist with both health issues relating to silicosis and respiratory diseases on the one hand, and the Department of Mineral Resources for those who may still be owed their provident fund and pension benefits. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable Magwebu.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Deputy Minister, this is a very painful issue. This issue has been there for many years now. I think, to be exact, since the advent of democracy, these matters have been, our people have been crying for these monies to be paid out. I hear your response with due respect. I want to say nothing much is being done, to assist, these workers. Some die before they even receive this money. Now, my question is now, in fact, this is another ANC failure. My question is now to you, would you ensure that as the department playing your role, this matter, you'll continuously, make sure that this matter is resolved, so that this money could be paid out? Would you give us that commitment? Thank you, sir.
Deputy Minister.
I will give you the commitment to the effect that all funds that are under the control of the Department of Labor that are due to beneficiaries will be provided to beneficiaries.
Honorable Magwebu, and this is a response to your support.
For instance, the Unemployment Insurance Fund is under our control. And we do give out the benefits to those beneficiaries who deserve them. The Compensation Fund is another one. Now, as I have said before, the Provident Funds and pension benefits funds are not under our control. They are controlled by the Financial Services Board, and that board is under the Department of Finance or National Treasury. Therefore, it would help this August House to invite the department to which the FSP accounts, so that this matter is shared with them, and they are in a position to inform you exactly what it is that they are doing. But as I say, nonetheless, because we are one government, we do assist each other. Whenever we go to talk about our own programs and discover that there are issues that are raised pertaining to other departments, we inform those departments. And when we do follow up, we even invite them to come along so that they can do what is expected of them. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. The Honorable Makue.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Minister. I think, Deputy Minister, unlike the person that did the previous follow-up question, I know that these violations of the rights of workers has been with us for ages, long before 1994. That means that this democratic government has an even bigger responsibility to find redress. But mindful of the importance of the workers also taking responsibility for their own liberation, what has happened was that trade union federations contributed significantly towards the Bill of Rights in our present constitution and ensured that the right of workers to join trade unions is enshrined in our democratic constitution. My question then now is that in your response, Deputy Minister, you did not mention trade unions at all. Could you give us an indication what cooperation the Department of Labor is receiving from trade unions in addressing these violations of worker rights?
Deputy Minister.
Well, Chairperson, the truth of the matter is that regarding this particular matter of pension benefits and provident funds, I'm not aware if our department has engaged trade unions. Because as I say, this is money that resides, is controlled at least in another department. But whenever we conduct inspections, whenever we address Izimbizo, we make sure that trade unions are part of our program and that we work together, we share information and experiences together so that we are in a position to ensure that as many of our people as possible enjoy the human rights that the trade union movement has also fought for.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable Ntebe.
No, Chair, DM, you're correct. The Provident Fund Act provides for the tracing of the beneficiaries. It's very explicit on that. Over the past weekend, National Union of Mine Workers was in Limpopo trying to do the same thing. And that's why the question by Honorable Makwe is relevant, so that you have the multiplicity of players coming together to assist each other. In my past life, OR Tambo region in the Eastern Cape and your Vryburg region were what was called the labor.
The member on the floor is protected.
In the past,
Honorable Mukwili, don't round the speaker. Thank you, ma'am. Honorable Faba. Honorable Faba, you are on your feet.
Just on a point of clarity, what is a past life?
That is not a point. Please proceed.
The OR Tambo region in the Eastern Cape and your Vryburg region in the Northwest were what was called the labor sending areas for the mining industry. Would you consider partnering with the stakeholders but also using the former TEBA offices so that at least the reach, the extent of the reach for such people can be closer, so that people can be able to just take a walk to the office and be able to register. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. On the point of life, can you please give order? Deputy Minister.
Once again, Chairperson, we always ensure that we work with relevant stakeholders whenever we prosecute our programs. And naturally, DEBA and the Chamber of Mines and the mining companies themselves are best placed to form partnerships with us as government and as the Department of Labor. We do therefore work with them on a continuous basis. Chairperson, if I may share with the honorable members who are public representatives, currently the Department of Health, together with the Department of Labor, are conducting an exercise in my constituency of Mkanduli, where they are inviting through traditional leaders and local councillors all those workers who used to work in the mines, those who got sick or injured because of working in the mines, and those who believe that they have, in fact, whether you believe or not, all of those who used to work in the mines are invited to come with their documents, be it a reference document or a pass or a book of life or an ID, so that through their systems, the officials are in a position to establish as to whether or not any of these former workers in the mines are entitled to be given medical services or to be paid any monies. And it doesn't end only with respect to the former workers, but also to their dependents, people who are entitled to their assets in their estates. They are also all invited. I think that kind of exercise is going to contribute a lot to ensuring that a number of people, at least in that constituency, do get their benefits. So I would advise, therefore, fellow members of parliament to invite relevant government departments, Department of Labor itself, Department of Health and others, mineral resources, to their constituencies so that our people are exposed as much as possible to the information that resides in those departments. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Ntate Khai.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Let me first correct my friend, Honorable Makwebu, that this is not an ANC failure. In fact, his question says how the government is assisting Chamber of Mines. Chamber of Mines are private owners, a majority of which are members of his party. So he's wrong by saying this. But my question to...
Yes. Please, order on the question part.
My question to the Deputy Minister is with regard...
Order.
Okay.
Order.
In fact,
order.
In fact, the Chamber of Mines were the ones that were responsible for not keeping the records of the mine workers that they employed. So my question is, in the mining sector, we also have foreign nationals. How are we then assisting to trace them so that they also benefit from their monies? Thank you.
Yeah. Deputy Minister?
I think the same program that is there that is led primarily by the Department of Mineral Resources extends beyond the borders of South Africa. We are aware of the countries that have migrant workers who have worked in our mines. The rights that are enjoyed by our own former mine workers are also due to those former mine workers who live in countries beyond our borders. In other words, therefore, I'm saying the efforts that we are making to trace these people in South Africa, we are also using them in the neighboring countries. Thank you. Using DEBA, of course, as the entity that was responsible for recruiting many of these mine workers.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Honorable members, I would like to thank the Deputy Minister for coming through and for spending this time and for really giving us answers. I want to also say that this concludes the business of the day, that honorable members are requested to remain standing until the procession has left the House. The House is adjourned.